at that very press conference, he disavowed racism and white supremacy, but that's still used by Joe Biden and by Chris Wallace. The fact that not only did he not fact-check Joe Biden, he used it himself in a question to Donald Trump is fucking shocking to me.
There's other ways we could approach that situation. We should be talking about that, not just, we should not be talking about defunding the state.
Yeah.
It just seems like a fundamentally disingenuous place to start.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat. With everything going on in this nation, we need some information, and that's why salt need to be stationed in your rotation. With real talking, real topics, real people, real problems. Think we need some help to solve them, and leave it up to Colin and the Donovan, cause that's what's that? Let's get ready.
And just like a red, white, and blue phoenix rising from the ashes of political bipartisanship and the COVIDs, we are back to Salt of the Streets podcast.
This is Saturday, October 3rd, 1:26 p.m., episode 94.
Check. And welcome back, everybody, to the Salt of the Streets podcast, your one and only source for social and political commentary and all the weekly news, pop culture, and sports that you can handle. And the best part about the whole deal, it's all built from the ground up for people like you and me, the everyday normal person. So come down and join us as we discuss life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, and continue our endless endeavor to bridge the gap between people and information, or people and low energy voters. So as always, low information voters. So as always, we are your hosts. I am Colin.
I am Donovan.
And coming up on this week's show, we were all subject to the debates. Unfortunately, we're all subject to it, so we have to live with that. And I think we're basically going to use that as the catalyst to determine the, I guess you call them topics for the day. We're just going to spin off of that, but we're going to start there. We talked about it in the pre-show. President Trump, the president of the United States, has been diagnosed with the COVIDs and has been... some of the headlines say airlifted, but he walked freely of his own volition, gave a thumbs up to the camera as he's heading out to Marine One. And they moved him to Walter Reed. Yeah, the first headline I saw was airlifted
to Walter Reed.
Yeah, so and you'll never guess what news outlet that came from. CNN.
Oh.
And which they've already updated the headline.
Terrible.
They are so terrible. What does CNN stand for? It was the something news network. CNN. Who knows? I'll look it up sometime throughout the show.
Yeah.
Anyways, we're going to talk about the COVIDs. We might get into some Ruth Bader Ginsburg if there's time there, because just from the Supreme Court and all that good stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
And we kind of mentioned it when we were talking with John Sadek,
just briefly,
but it was real brief because
it was kind of just on the way to abortion.
Indeed, it was kind of. If you want to put it that way, sure. This is going to be a really good podcast. I'm already really excited about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, and we've had there's going to be lots, because if you saw the debates, there is no shortage of anything to discuss. And almost more interestingly is the punditariat, all the political pundits.
Yeah.
The day after the punditry, thank you. The day after, and then the day after that, there was some initial kind of like, what the fuck did we all just witness?
Yeah.
And then there was like a lot of resignation. The commentary podcast over this last week has been my favorite thing, because like John Podhorns at one time, what's her name? Christine.
Yeah.
Had said something about
Christine
the 25th.
Rosen.
Yeah, Christine Rosen, who she had brought up the 25th Amendment or something like that, and John just had a breakdown, and it was the most hilarious thing to like witness audio. I don't know what you call it. Audiology. We can get into it when we start talking about COVID and some more and stuff like that. But yeah, he was just like the fact that, like, if you're going to talk about the 25th Amendment, like, this is actually the time that this really could come into play, and not these other times when it was being raised by, like General Kelly, and it got leaked out and all this shit. If we get a chance, because they didn't really bring it up during the debates, which was interesting, the taxes, Trump's taxes, and the New York Times drop.
They did for
from
a little
last
bit,
Sunday.
yeah.
And it was real. I mean, everything in that thing was real brief. There was almost no substance to almost any of it.
And I think part of that is because the topic changes seem to be dictated largely by the president. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
and
he was
because
the driving force.
Because his mind was, at least if his mind, if his speech was any reflection of what was happening in his brain, you know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It was so sporadic and shifted so fast that, I mean, you know, he was talking about 4 different things in 2 minutes.
Oh yeah.
And not oftentimes, but several times he was like even contradicting himself, because it was just like anything that sounds like it might be a hit against Joe Biden is what I'm going to say right now.
Yeah.
You know?
It was like a boxing match in my mind. It was
And
just like hit for hit. And he came in there like not Floyd Mayweather, but how Tyson's going to come back and just bam, 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 bam. Have you seen any of Tyson's training videos?
Brutal.
I am
savagery.
I'm legitimately terrified that he's going to murder somebody whenever they have that fight.
Well, and when Cam Hanks was on there and they were talking about him, and it was to
'Cause I watched
listen
that
to
shit
Joe
last
Rogan talk about the difference that he saw in Mike Tyson's mentality, and when Mike Tyson was saying shit like, I don't want to awaken my ego, and then like he said that to Joe Rogan, and then in a fucking Instagram post where he's not even talking to Joe Rogan, he's saying that shit. That's like, he was really saying like, these are planes that I don't want to cross in my life, and he's like, I'm fucking here. It's too late.
Like the dogs of war have refired my ego or some shit. And I was like, oh, this is not good.
Joe Rogan, and he's like, I'm genuinely concerned about. Joe Rogan said that he had the table widened in his studio
6
because he
inches.
was so uncomfortable when he was interviewing Mike Tyson.
Yeah.
That when he was moving to Texas, he thought, he was like, oh, maybe I'll make a smaller table so it's like a more intimate conversation. And then he talked to Mike Tyson the second time around while he's like in his fight camp. Terrified him to the point that terrified him to the point that he then chose to make his table wider so he had more space in between him and his guests, which is hilarious.
Well, and did you listen to both interviews over the?
I have not listened to either of the Mike Tysons.
Oh man!
And now I feel like I have to.
You do.
Yeah,
you definitely do, because
before I was like, oh, he's smoking weed. I don't give a shit about Mike Tyson smoking weed. And then I was like, oh, he's kind of a crazy person now. I don't know that I want to listen to that, you know. But now I feel like I have to, just so that I can see the difference between the two people, because that's weird.
It's disturbing. Like, just because I listened to that episode once upon a time, and then I went back and watched it, because if I listen to one of the JREs that's really, really good and I'm really into it, like, I'll go back and watch it again, like the following week or something. Hard, yeah. Which BT Dubs, like, he's getting a shit ton of hate for the new studio, and I don't really. I think
it's
that's
all right.
So stupid.
I don't hate it, but I don't
like it more than the last one. But then again, I don't really care.
Right.
He could be on like a black. I mean, I like the Snowden background.
Just like his
matte gray, whatever. He could do that, and I'm in, because I'm more in for the content. But but yeah, it's disturbing. Like, I had a hard time listening to the second one. I was like, oh, this dude is he's a murderer, and like. That fucking clip that President Trump retweeted.
Yeah.
With Mike Tyson talked about like, oh yeah, the orgasmic of violence or something like that. I can't remember exactly what it was, but it was quite interesting. And just re-listening to it, I was like, man, this is a new dude.
President Trump is a crazy person too, I think.
He is. I think that's why the two of them would really get along.
Him
and Tyson would be homies.
Have you listened to the Joe Rogans with Tim Dillon?
Yes. So just listened to that one the other day too.
I was listening to that one yesterday when I was at work.
Tim Dillon's funny as fuck.
He's super funny. I didn't even know who he was until he was on Joe Rogan the first time, and I'm a huge fan.
Because I saw that his claim to fame was that Sarah Palin thing that he did.
Yes.
Oh my! And that was like, I laughed so hard. And I was like, that is fucking disgusting and fucked up, but goddamn it, it's funny. And it's so good.
Yeah, and Meghan McCain. That was Oh, the first time that he was on there was right after President Trump had done that press conference when he said, like, he wished Ghislaine Maxwell well, you know? He was like, I wish her well. And that was the take I loved the best from Tim Dillon, that he was like, no. Like, I'm from New York. Like, these are how these dudes talk, that he's like brushing it off, you know what I'm saying? That he's like, you have to imagine him on a golf course, and he's teeing off, and then he hits the ball, and he's like, yeah, I wish her well. You know, it's almost just like he's just brushing off. Like, this is how I'm ending the conversation. You know, I thought that was, and not that not that it wasn't an extremely inappropriate way for the question to be answered, but I thought that was a way better take than like, that's it, he's fucking just not even going to address it. Like, this is, I don't know. I that guy's really funny. Tim Dillon's funny. Really funny.
He's a wild man.
Big fan.
So before we get any further,
yes.
I wanted to take this chance to speak to our listeners.
Yes.
And just kind of right out the front, if you are listening to this and you are digging what we're doing, please like, share, subscribe, whatever you're doing. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, make sure to hit the like button, make sure to subscribe to us, turn the notification bell. If you're listening to this via podcast, get into them ratings. All that stuff really, really helps us out. We've been the Facebook and just social media in general right now has not exactly been cooperating.
It's a fucking war zone over
there. It is a war zone, and so we need your help as listeners and viewers to just kind of spread the word. And that is the most powerful thing you can do, and it is super easy. You don't even have to write anything. Just hit the share button, bro. We got you. We got you. We would love you forever. Thank you so much. And with that, we'll carry on. Sorry.
No, that's perfect.
So let's talk about the debates real quick. Let's just jump into it.
Oh, I meant, God damn it.
Oh, no.
I was going to say this in the fucking pre-show. The Oregon football schedule got released today.
Oh, that's too bad.
Because
thanks to President Trump, right, there is going to be college
he
ball.
He brought back the SEC.
Because that's apparently his thing now.
Yeah, they've been playing for 2 weeks. I think today is week 3 in college football right now in some of the conferences. It was totally dependent on conference. So I know the SEC, the Big Ten, things like that. The bigger conferences came back.
Which just goes to show you how disconnected college football is actually from college.
Yes.
Almost as if they shouldn't belong together. But
we don't need to talk about that.
Because
if there's billions of dollars to be made, then people are going to start jumping on, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Interesting that even though college students of all children, let's just as a classification, right?
Yeah. Which is sad that we can call college kids these days
just as a classification. But I mean, even myself, if I was in college, I would be included in this classification just for the reasons of this particular conversation.
Yeah.
But it's interesting that of all of children, right, college students would be the most likely to get sick from COVID-19, but those are the ones that unquestionably started to go back.
That's
you know
true.
what I'm saying?
Yeah.
There's all these questions about whether or not elementary students should go back, but so many of these colleges were like, oh, for sure, we're going back. We're going to try it. We're going to go for it. They're the most likely to get sick. But
aren't a lot
got to keep the fucking checks rolling in, bro.
But what happened to UW?
No.
Huge outbreak.
What I'm saying.
Oh, UW. Super spreader moment.
Not surprised.
I love
there
all
was
these.
a bunch of colleges that happened at, that they went back and there was fucking outbreaks. You know what I'm saying?
I wonder why.
Right. And if you're going back and
because
you're
college
drinking
kids are fucking disgusting.
Super unhealthy. Yeah, super unhealthy. I know. Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, because I haven't looked too much into it, but I remember seeing a lot of stories where a lot of these Ivy League schools are only going back on. They're starting schools again, but it's still online learning, but the kids come back and they stay in the dorms, and then tuition obviously is exactly the same for I don't need to get onto that.
So you got to keep the fucking checks rolling in. Isn't that interesting?
Isn't it funny?
The kids who need it the most, and that's what we keep fucking arguing as good Democrats, that the public schools, they need the money, but we got to make sure the colleges keep the checks rolling.
That's right. Keep them
super
things
weird,
going.
right? Because we have all those federal loans that are going through the college. We're going to make sure.
Well, not only that, but that's where all the politicians come from these upper echelon schools, and there's maybe a dozen of them. That almost every politician that has come into power that has been there for 20 plus years.
Yeah.
They all come from the same exact colleges, from the same exact pedigrees, from the same exact backgrounds. And we all wonder why we're in the situation we're in. But regardless.
I wonder if
college football's back in play.
Yes.
Oregon.
Yeah, so Oregon, because the Pac-12 was one of the last conferences to come back, obviously.
So are they playing today? Usually college ball's on Saturday,
No, it starts
right?
in the beginning of November, yes.
Okay.
So colleges are playing today. The Pac-12 is not. It starts in the beginning of November. I think November 7th is their first game.
Okay.
And they have a short season. It's 7 or 8 weeks. Usually it's a 12-week season, and so this year it's 7-8 weeks. And usually they start the week before the NFL starts. There's a week of college football, and then in week 2 of college is week 1 of the NFL, is usually how that goes. And I I'm pretty certain. Now that I said it, I feel like I have that backwards, but I'm like I'm like 99% sure that's how it is.
99%
Yeah, one of
sure.
them starts a week before the other one.
We'll go with it.
And
it makes sense to me.
It's college because I was watching the Ducks game last year when the TV broke, and I was in the middle of the Ducks game.
I remember that.
The following day was going to be when. Yes.
God,
yes,
I remember that, dude. That was life-shattering. You right before the game was like, oh no.
Well,
no,
now,
the TV.
Now my fucking son, he stands in front of the TV and he fucking taps on it, bro. And I'm like, I got
an extra wall mount.
I know.
You want a
you
wall
have
mount?
one? Yeah.
I'll give it to you today.
Yeah. It's only been an issue for like a couple weeks,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like only like once every couple of days that I'm like, you're gonna break it, and I'm gonna fucking scream, and I'm gonna throw you against a wall.
Good time to get that thing up off the ground, bro. I got you.
love him.
I've had this extra wall mount. It's a nice articulating thing. Blah blah blah. It holds like up to like a movie theater screen. Yeah, you guys should go home with that tonight.
I'm sure every listener with a toddler is like, why didn't you mount it before he was even born? Because I'm a fucking idiot. I don't. It's crazy to me, like, and I'm not even trying to like have an ego or anything, but like just how intelligent I know that I am. That we can have conversations like this, make content like this, but some of the stuff that, like, that I do, it just doesn't make sense.
The
like
problem is,
it's
the problem
the
here really is, Donovan.
The simple stuff. My
Yeah,
brain is like, I don't.
Well, it's because you are such a rationally grounded individual. So everything you deal with is rational and logical, and children are everything but that. So the fact that you can be the father that you are today, and like I've seen you with Dax, and you are an amazing father, and all this good stuff.
That.
But I know it ain't easy. I know it ain't easy for you, because you're going to be great when that kid is about 8 years old. That's where you're really going to shine, man. Yeah. But up until now, you just need to buckle up and just get through it.
Yeah.
Because everything that he's going to do from now until then, and probably honestly till the rest of his life, is just going to be like, you motherfucker.
Now he's doing stuff like we were talking about this morning. There's some stuff that like, because I spend less time at home, there are certain things like I want to do this with Dad, you know, and so the last couple weeks, like we've had to put him down to sleep together. He doesn't want just one of us to go in there. Like we both have to go in there. There's some shit like I only want Dad to read this book right now, and it's just not particular books. It's just at this particular moment, Dad is the only person that I would like to read this book. They call me like twice a day usually, because either he'll wake up like asking for me, especially on a Monday after I've been home over the weekend, because any day that I'm home in the morning, I'll go and get him in the morning, because I don't hardly ever have the opportunity. So if I'm there in the morning, I'll go and get him.
Yeah,
and so
not
Monday,
even he gets up that early,
right?
Because he's smarter than the rest of us.
And so when I'm back to work on Monday, and then I don't go and get him in the morning on Monday, he's like, "What the fuck?" Yeah. And so they'll like FaceTime me like twice a day usually, because he'll at some point just Dada.
Oh, dude,
it's
heartbreaking.
Nice, yeah, it's unfortunate, but it's nice. It's nice to know that Daddy gives a shit. You know what I'm saying? That was always
Daddy.
having grown up without a dad, I'm like, what if he just doesn't even care? Like, what if he's like impartial to like having a father? You know what I'm saying? So it's nice to
That's
know.
quite possible too.
That's totally personal,
even for a dude that grew up with his dad, didn't really get a relationship with him until like much later in life. And then by then it was basically too late at that point. So don't feel like it's, even if he is growing up with his dad, he's a boy. Yeah. They're not always outwardly affectionate and open to things. But I think with you as a father, because you are, and I think it might be much
constantly.
Well, and I think it might be because of how you were raised with basically nothing but women around.
All ladies.
You are much more in tune with your, I don't want to say in tune with your emotions. You're much more aware of your emotions than most guys that I've ever met. Yeah. And so that'll probably carry out to him, which is, I feel, be a much healthier way to live, especially having his dad around. Yeah. So you got a good thing going on, both of you guys.
I gush to the boy pretty consistently, especially if he's like eating, because that's when he's like chill, when he's not moving, when he's eating, he's
in his happy place.
Pacified,
he's the zone.
Yeah, by nutrition, and so I'm just like, God damn it, I love you. I tell him all the time, like, I fucking love you so much.
Aww.
And he goes,
Like, I know. I know. And that's why I'm going to do this. Because I know I can.
He's pretty good. He doesn't really throw too much shit off his tray anymore.
Yeah.
He does sometimes, but it's not too bad. Not as bad like when he first got in there.
Wait for the terrible twos to come around.
Bro, we're in it. We're so deep in it.
Well, he's so advanced. Yeah. That dude, he's like the smartest kid I've ever seen of his age.
Watching you all of the time. He started when he blows his nose, right? Because he'll snatch a tissue, and now we're just here talking about a fucking kid. He'll grab a tissue.
We're gonna start out light.
He'll like pretend to blow his nose, and then like when I do, I'll like fold the tissue up, and then and he'll like do that, and he'll like wad it up, and then like twist it like on his face. You know what I'm saying? So, like, it's the smallest stuff that he's watching you do that he will then mirror when he goes to do it, you know? So he's blowing his nose the same way that he's watched me blow my nose fucking the whole time that he's been... It's just weird.
It's funny.
The little...
Because that's how they do it, though, right?
Yeah.
It totally makes sense, but it seems super cool when you're watching it happen.
It's weird.
It's
awesome.
Super
weird.
Imagine if you have a semi-decent reflection of your self-reflection of yourself, though. If you're comfortable seeing yourself in something that's not you... How is that?
It's really fucking intimidating.
I love the fact that whenever we look over at Jordan for an answer, she's like, all right, yeah, I will go ahead and say something now because I'm on the other side of the room, assholes, and I don't have a microphone. I greatly appreciate that. We're gonna get you
mount one into the wall over there.
Exactly. And we'll have our own version of the culture corner.
Yes,
Yeah. Boom.
Exactly. Okay.
Yeah. So now that we've mentally gotten happy, we're
Yeah.
gonna go ahead and ruin our lives again by talking about the debate.
Yeah, and then we'll end with sports. We'll try and bring it back up.
So before we get into the nitty gritty, can I just ask you,
Yes.
as it began to unfold, what was your emotional response? What was your reaction within say watching the first 10 minutes? Once it actually started, I should say.
As with many things with the president, I cannot say that I was shocked, you know what I'm saying? Because I feel like if I had to answer honestly, I expected his behavior to be pretty par with how it was in reality. But I always hope, that he's going to take the opportunity to try and get it together a little bit, you know?
Do you feel like he's like that in all the time in his regular life?
It's got to be genuine. At this point, 4 years of opportunity after opportunity after opportunity to rise above that type of behavior is never doing it. Yeah. So it has to be genuine. At first I thought it was a character, but I think it's genuine. I think that he just so much a businessman, so egotistical, so self-centered that it's just doesn't care. He's been so rich for so long that it's who gives a fuck,
It's totally disconnected.
Yeah.
So would you say that, obviously no one will really ever know, but in your mind, would you have picked that out more as a deliberate strategy? Or kind of from what you're saying, it sounds like more you think that's just kind of who he is, period.
I think that his performance is partially a side effect if he was telling the truth. Because he was saying that he wasn't preparing. He wasn't doing, fake debates. He wasn't doing prep debates or anything like that. So I think it's partially that's a side effect of that. If he really wasn't doing any debates prior with anybody.
I'm just going to go in like a bulldozer.
Then that's part of it. Part of it is you're contradicting yourself because you didn't even have a consistent line of logic that you're going to follow while you're out there. You just fucking went for it. And so anything you saw to take a shot on, you took the shot. And that's part of why he interrupted so much. Because when he debated Hillary, he interrupted, but nowhere near like this.
I didn't expect that.
No. It was, in this, I was genuinely surprised at the point that Chris Wallace said, close towards the end, he was like, your campaign agreed to 2 minutes of uninterrupted speech for every topic, just for this. All of the other 13 minutes or 11 minutes of this segment, you can say whatever the fuck you want because that's the open discussion. So I can ask you not to, but if you're going to interrupt, it is what it is. But you agreed to 2 minutes. The fact that he was unable to shut the fuck up for 2 minutes. Because on a lot of that shit...
But realistically, it was... he couldn't stay silent for more than maybe 10 to 15 seconds.
It was bad.
Like,
And
if you were actually to put a stopwatch to it, I think
yeah.
10 to 15 seconds is very reasonable to the longest pause that he had.
And there was a fair amount of times in which Joe Biden was fucking himself over. And if he would have just been allowed to just go, he would have done it himself. But because President Trump felt like he was unable to contain himself,
to
take a shot, he couldn't even just allow.
Just couldn't let it happen.
That would have been a better debate strategy for convincing people to vote for him if he would have allowed Joe Biden to exhibit himself why he was incapable of being president.
And I think
Instead,
that's
you try to
probably
just take all these shots, which just make you look like an asshole.
And I think if this guy, I am not a psychologist, but
We are not doctors
I am
here
right
at
now.
Salt of the Streets. Let's just put that out there right now.
From a layman's perspective, knowing the little tiny bit I do about psychology, right? This man is a egomaniac.
Oh,
period.
yeah.
Right? He is. I don't think there's much real personality within him. I think he is about 90 to 95% ego. Period.
I mean, they were saying that they gotta say his name as many times as possible in the morning briefing so that he'll fucking pay attention to what they're saying. You know,
and I mean, whether or not that's true, I'm not gonna
Who
say,
knows?
but I think his behavior exhibits that.
Yeah.
And I think this debate is probably, especially if he wasn't doing debate prep,
right?
and it was just went into this thing like he does everything else, because he is good at riffing. He can just do it.
He's a fucking comedian, bro.
He is a
stand-up
master.
comedian. The
100%.
timing is impeccable.
Yeah. When he gets up at his fucking rallies and talks for 3 hours, maybe 60 minutes of it is on a prompter or something like that. The dude he knows how to play to a crowd. He knows how to just be the center of attention and be in charge like that.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's anything else to him.
I was,
And so, sorry, the point I was going to get at about him being basically all ego is his ego is so intense that he can't allow someone the pleasure or acknowledgement of even in the purely colloquial political suicide. They can't even, his ego can't let somebody kill themselves. He has to kill them.
Right.
He can't let them just step back and take care of it himself and bury themselves by whatever it is they're going to say.
Yeah.
He feels like his ego needs to be there so he could take the kill. And I think that might be, just from what I saw in the debate, which was, it's a terrible strategy because he's about the worst person to try to deliver anything that he actually thinks.
Yeah.
Like, he's not good at expressing himself or describing ideas or, a lot of different things. But I think that was my take anyways.
Yeah.
Out of that whole thing. And I wonder if do you think that has any validity?
I think it has to.
Right. In some factor.
It has to play some factor in it.
Because otherwise, what do you do? I mean, if you won't give somebody enough rope to hang themselves in the political sense, which is usually the smart thing to do, what is wrong with you?
Yeah, and I think that you're right, because we've seen in the past, he wants to attribute credit always to himself.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's always things that he's done. I did this. They even talked about it in the debate when he said, I've done more for black people. I've done more than anybody else in history for black people, other than maybe the possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. The possible exception of Abraham Lincoln.
I almost pissed my pants when I heard him say that, because I wrote it down because I listened to it live. It was during one of those press conferences for Corona, and I almost pissed my pants. I laughed so hard. I was at work. I had to go back and listen to it again and we talked about it in one of these episodes. Because I fucking laughed so hard. I could not believe that he had said that. And
right.
So, I mean,
because it seems so obvious. Who does that?
Yeah. So you have to be right about the egomaniac part.
Remember what happened to the Beatles? They're like, oh, we're bigger than Jesus. And what happened? Yeah. Dude, it don't work out that well. You can't be better than everything else. People don't like to hear that.
Yeah.
Because by doing that, you're essentially, if you're putting that off in the language that, whatever you're saying, right? If you're putting out that vibe that I am just better than everyone, especially this guy right here, it's off-putting to almost everybody, because nobody likes to be told they're lesser than someone else.
Yeah.
Especially when they're somebody that's so elite that they're in a completely different world. It is so off-putting. I just don't think that should be underestimated.
And I think that it's possible, kind of to the point of him being an egomaniac, that he, for so long, has made his money off of the news cycle.
Yeah.
That
attention, media attention.
Yeah, even as president, that's still like a big focus, and that's evident just in his tweeting and stuff like that, saying things that he knows for certain are going to, catch
fire
wind.
and fury.
Yeah,
baby.
yeah, and so I think that plays a factor in that, is just anything for more time in the spotlight, and.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more.
It's not good.
Yeah, I think that's kind of why I wanted to ask that right off the beginning, because I feel like that's something that should be almost flushed out a little bit before you talk about anything that happened within the debate, because that energy, that persona, that presence ran throughout the entirety of everything, and it affected every topic that got hit.
And I want to throw in real quick, I for sure, and I'm pretty sure you did too, live tweeted this debate.
I tried.
I've
to say I drank so fast, I drank so much so fast,
and
that I didn't trust myself.
And we
Twitter
usually
anymore.
do that for events like this when there are
Yeah.
big things that are on, and so just so that everybody knows, a lot of our initial takes come out in the tweets, right? And so you can find that our Twitters. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter. He's at Big Bird Offie, and that's on both those things. I'm at Alpaca_Donovan on Instagram. You find all this on our website, Salt of the Streets, YouTube at Salt of the Streets, Instagram at Salt of the Streets, Facebook Salt of the Streets. It's all there. But yeah, we do a lot of live tweeting during big events like this. So certainly,
we'll definitely be doing something for the VP debate.
If the next debate, we will definitely be live tweeting during the VP debate. If
100%.
the next presidential debate happens, Colin and I are going to watch that one together, and
we might try to live stream
and live stream it. Yeah, we're going to try, and so it'll probably be a setup very similar to this with another computer here with the fucking the debate on it.
I can put my we can do that. I'm pretty sure we'll have to do it through C-SPAN, I believe, because I think everybody else has got their rights to their own shit. I can't quite know how that works, but the C-SPAN shit worked perfect the last time I watched it.
Yeah,
so I'd imagine
I watched it on YouTube on C-SPAN,
and essentially I think we could probably do a picture-in-picture right here.
Oh,
with
I
view
just
of the
meant
desktop.
Oh, yeah, that's probably a good idea too.
We can totally do that.
Exactly, and then we can have clips and stuff like that, live reactions and whatnot.
Oh yeah,
but I have a couple of timestamps here, so if we end up wanting to pull the clips from it, then we can do that.
Cool.
But so I told you before, I took my notes just like kind of through the debate. I started and then just went on. So it's all in chronological order.
Which is funny. I did the same thing, except I stopped. You could tell the point that I was like, this is going to be ridiculous.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that far into it.
So when it started, the first question was about Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes.
The very first question was about who fills the seat and why they should get to fill the seat, right? And so, excuse me, let's start here, right? So we talked last time we were here about the fact that Ruth Bader Ginsburg had died, and I think we just kind of mentioned it, didn't really discuss it for very long, but I definitely want to have this discussion because as soon as it happened, obviously, the fucking world fell apart. Everybody started to freak out. What's going to happen? It was like the very same day that Mitch McConnell said that he was going to force through the seat. He was like, I'm going to do it. I don't care, right? Josh Keaton texted me. I talked to like 2 or 3 different people about this. Even Josh Keaton was like, I don't know what anybody else expected from Mitch McConnell, right?
Yeah.
And so my personal take on it, right? Because I'm a believer in precedent. I think that it's wild, and so is Mitch McConnell, at least from what that he says. I think that it's crazy that
Mitch McConnell's a fan of legal precedent.
Exactly. So I think that it's crazy that he set the precedent 4 years ago that by saying like, oh, well, if it happens in an election year, then, we should wait till the election happens.
There is more to that. It doesn't make it less bullshit.
No,
but there is more to that.
But that was the gist of his argument, right? I remember having that discussion of like, and so I think that that's interesting. But again, the same thing as President Trump and the debate, if I were to really be pressed on it, I'm like, well, Of course he's gonna fucking fill the seat. Like it's of course he is. I wouldn't expect anything else.
It's Turtle Man, dude. That's what he does.
So I don't know what anybody else expected, right? And because there isn't a written rule for how this should go, he's gonna do whatever the fuck he wants.
Yep.
And so,
and you can call him a hypocrite as much as you want.
Certainly, and he is.
I would just tell you this right now: politics is the act of being hypocritical and getting away with it. I mean, the fact that he was successfully able to connive the Senate's, and the president's, the constitutional responsibility to, what's the terminology in the Constitution? Essentially, like vet, you know, the president's nominee and stuff like that. I can't remember the verbiage; it's pissing me off. But like that's their constitutional responsibility to do that. The fact that he wouldn't allow that. And he got away with it. He convinced everybody that due to it being, you know, a lame duck presidency, blah, 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 excuse number that, like, we're not going to do this. Yeah. You know, it's like, this isn't fair. Like, how is this possible? And the fact that he's reneging on that now and, like, hey, I'm going to fulfill my constitutional responsibility. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's because he is an amazingly talented politician.
He's been there this long for a reason.
Yeah. And the sad thing is people like Joe Biden and stuff Joe Biden, during his time in the Senate, was probably, at this point, if you took his performance back then compared to what Mitch is doing now, like he's the number 2 guy. Yeah. Like in skill level.
If he was still in the Senate, he would be fucking, he'd be right
there. Ruthless. Yeah. Because he always has been.
He'd be just as bad as Chuck Schumer.
But Chuck Schumer,
but more ruthless.
But yeah, Chuck Schumer's he's not that good at it. I don't want to say he's dumb. He's just not that good at it because he's still pretty good. He's just not. Mitch is on another level, man. And so there's constitutionally, it is the responsibility of the Senate to hold a confirmation hearing upon the president nominating a replacement in the Supreme Court. Constitutionally, it's their responsibility, and so he's not technically wrong now. He was technically wrong back then, but he got away with it. So now he's free and clear to do whatever he wants. Right. And he is shoving that thing through. I mean, I think lately, because slight aside, because of the president's COVID diagnosis, like they're like, oh, you guys can't still be doing this. I mean, shit, there's 2 senators now that are on the judiciary that got it. Right. Like, you can't do this still. They're like, yeah, we can. They can Skype in. We're still going to do this.
We're going to do it.
It's fine. He's fine. He's just at Walter Reed for a few days. We're still doing this. The dude is a master, man. Yeah. And fuck him for being so good. Yeah. But technically, he's not doing anything wrong.
So let me ask this, right? Because
whether I like it or not.
This is one of the things they talked about. Joe Biden even said it, that, like, you know, this is on the ballot in the court, right? Because that's one of these big things. It's like, oh, well, you know, the people of the United States should have a say in who gets to fill this seat.
Hard no, we shouldn't.
I think that's bullshit. I think that is a bullshit argument, right? Yeah. And I wrote it, like, in my phone.
This document right here contradicts that statement.
Yeah, I wrote it in my phone. So let me even pull it up and I'll write, because it was like right before we went to bed that I wrote it.
So healthy that we're looking at this stuff as we're going to bed.
Yeah.
Isn't that? It's like rule number 1. Don't do that. But hey, that's how we live our lives. Yeah. The
American people don't have a right to say in the SCOTUS nomination because there's no way to know when it happens. Word, right? Okay, so that was it, right? So there's no way to even to know when it's going to happen, right? Because the fact of the matter is that if Amy Coney Barrett is placed in Coney, right?
I've heard so many. It might be my ears playing tricks on me, but I've heard so many people when they say Amy Coney Barrett. that name now is poison to me. Amy Coney.
So if she's placed on the Supreme Court, right?
Yes.
And God forbid, right? But if
heaven forbid.
Joe Biden, I don't mean that. I mean, no. I mean, but
from their perspective,
if she's placed on the court and then Joe Biden gets into office, right? Mm-hmm. And then, God forbid, fucking 2 weeks after he's inaugurated, like half of the 7 members of the Supreme Court die in a fucking bombing. He's gonna nominate 7 members of the Supreme Court, right? Nobody is going, and that's like a very extreme example. So if Brett Kavanaugh gets shot the next day, right? Nobody is ever going to think that Joe Biden is going to have the responsibility of filling Brett Kavanaugh's seat because he's fucking 40 years old. We're going to expect him to be there forever, right? There's no way to know when a Supreme Court justice is going to have to be chosen. And so why the fuck would the American people have any That's not even like in part of the ballot or anything. You know what I'm saying?
I
Like,
think that's kind of the general consensus of that feeling, though, is the fact that, like, at this point, the Supreme Court is really no less political than anything else to the American public. And so if there is a seat vacancy, maybe the public should have a say in what they say.
That's gross.
At that point. Well, I know.
yeah. And
But
that's
because of how tainted it has become, people now, I mean, you got to remember, this is no longer a democratic republic. I mean,
Right.
it is structurally, but this is a populist it's a populist version of that, right? Which almost instantly degrades essentially into just pure democracy, which is dangerous.
Yeah.
Which is also why we're on the brink of war. But the way, like, that feeling that it has become so political that we should have a say in it, there is some validity in people feeling that, whether or not it's right constitutionally, because
wrong.
it is not. They are wrong to
yes.
to think that. You can feel
I
that way as much
understand the
as you
feeling,
want.
yeah, but you're still wrong.
Yes. So it's like
Yeah.
people that do feel that, there is, like, I understand that. I understand where it comes from. But the problem with trying to be logical and tie yourself to a core belief system and a core ethical system that we do as a nation, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights,
Yeah.
Declaration of Independence, like we need to stick to that. Otherwise, we're not exceptional anymore. Like, we do have those rules because we understand the danger of democracy. We understand the danger, which is why the republic aspect comes into play, because it's a check on the classical 51% ruling to 49%. Like, that is a recipe for disaster no matter which way you split it, because roughly half the country hates each other at that point.
Yeah.
And it's time to say we don't want to live together anymore. It's time for divorce. And that doesn't end well. And so you can feel that way, but you have to understand that in a logical and rational sense, we need to stick to the rules that were laid out. Otherwise, people get angry. And then we start conflicts. Otherwise, this system has worked real fucking well for a long time. The founding fathers thought we'd have a hell of a lot more revolutions than we've ever had. It's worked out for a while. All we got to do is just put faith in that system, and we'll be fine. No matter how dirty it appears to be playing, we are the system at that point. And no matter how corrupt the politicians are, we have this backstop called the Constitution. We can fall back on that until it takes time to clean house, and we can do what we need to do electorally to get the right thing going again. That's possible. It takes a lot of patience, and it's really hard.
Right.
And so, again, I don't want to, like, disenfranchise people that feel like it's wrong that this is happening, and essentially being kind of like, they feel like, well, they're lying. They lied back then, and now they're forcing through somebody. Like, but technically, this is the way it's supposed to be, and you need to understand that it will come back around, and it will be okay.
And I guess I just don't. I probably should, but I don't have as much patience for. Patience maybe isn't the right word, but
Understanding, maybe.
Yeah, maybe forgiveness, something. I'm not sure.
Problem is, the
Leniency
number of people that feel that way in my
people.
life seem to be growing, and I become a really small minority that think that way, and it's hard to, because a lot of them do have rational reasonings behind this, but I still understand that, like, but you can think that way as much as you want, but you can't try to actually put that into action. Right.
And so what I'm saying is I don't have as much leniency for people who don't understand the system. Like, that's,
and I get it.
That's fine that you feel that.
It can be hard to immerse yourself in that world if everybody's seeming to just go insane and lose their mind, and you're the only one that's left. And now I'm like, okay, what? Just, I don't want to talk about it, guys. Whatever. If you we've all had conversations, but if this is the way everyone's jumping overboard, I'm not going. But, like, I'm done telling you guys it's a bad idea now.
And I'm not asking anybody to immerse themselves in.
No. I'm just saying that's the way I felt.
Colin.
So maybe I get more people some more. It's a problem. Sorry.
Let me finish. Jesus Christ. I don't have as much leniency for people who don't understand the system. That's fine that they feel that way, but that's not my fucking problem. And we had a similar conversation last night with Jordan about the Electoral College and the popular vote. That's fine that not you, but like colloquially that people don't. She
Understand it.
brought up Donald Trump not having won the popular vote, but he won the electoral college, right? And so there are people who feel like it's like not legitimate. I said, and that's fine, but they're wrong, and I don't care that they feel that way because they're fucking wrong. Like that's fine that you feel that way, but you're wrong.
Still
you
wrong.
know, at the end of the day, and I don't have leniency for that because I don't care that you didn't pay attention to how the electoral college works when we were in school. So there's some stuff that I had to learn afterwards that we've talked about as far as like super delegates and shit like that really fuck the system around. That they don't teach you about in school, you know, because that's not the core of the system. That's not how it should be. That's an aftermarket thing that we stacked on.
That's a really good point. Like,
do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so, but as far
addressing
as
the core foundation of it, not addressing
where
it's really at.
As far as the actual basic workings of the electoral college, if you don't understand that, that's not my fucking problem, and I'm not gonna take the time to explain that to you because you should get it. And if you are like, that's not how this works, and it's only fucking 46% and blah blah blah, that's not how it works here. That's not how this system works. And so I don't even like entertain conversations about like, well, and not at all, because I'm certainly willing to have conversations with people about like different perspective systems, you know, but like, well, this just isn't right. Like, I'm not going to even have this conversation
no, actually,
because
it is.
This is how this works, you know.
Facts don't care about your feelings,
right?
Man.
And it's the same thing with Mitch McConnell. That's like, I don't know what else you would expect. I also don't agree with it. I think it's shady as fuck.
Like, I don't like it any more than you do, man.
Yeah,
but it's supposed to happen.
And I compared it to gerrymandering too, like partisan gerrymandering. That when that decision came down from the Supreme Court, that we were like, you're saying that you're not going to do anything because it's supposed to be this way, and they're like, yes, 100%.
Okay.
It's dark as fuck, but it's political at its core. So it's supposed to be this way. You are supposed to try and elect delegates and representatives and weird little county workers that believe in what you believe in, so they can try and draw up the fucking districts how they want. That's weird, and it doesn't feel right. But that's how it was designed. And I don't... There's some shit that...
And I mean, if you read it out of, like... you read the actual language, like, you can't help but get any other takeaway.
Yeah.
You have to be like, well...
It is what it is.
Really?
Yeah. This is
just
like how
that?
it is.
You sure?
You need to be better. That's why political science exists. That's why these career paths exist. Because you need to be better. I watched a movie last week called The Ides of March. Have you ever seen this movie?
No.
It has George Clooney in it. It has fucking Ryan Gosling in it, right?
Oh, of course.
And George Clooney is a governor who's running for president. And
what is this movie?
It's a fucking call-in. It immediately became one of my favorite movies. It is a fucking great Ides. IDES. The Ides of March. Yeah.
Oh.
So
2011
immediately became one of my favorite movies, right?
How have I never seen this?
Yeah, so George Clooney's running for president, and Ryan Gosling is like the co-chair of his campaign. And so it's about the inner workings and the darkness and the shady things that they have to do just in just a few weeks, you know? Fucking amazing.
Seems pretty on point from the little that we know.
Yeah, why did I bring this up?
Because the darkness, how things work. Not liking how it happens, but it's the right way to happen. Electoral college, gerrymandering. I really threw you off.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But that whole movie is about that. You know,
the fact that it's super shady, but that's how it works.
Yes, yeah, that it's all just the background nastiness of that. You know,
how we're watching the sausage being made. Nobody likes watching the sausage being made, right? But you'll love sausage.
Exactly. Oh, this is what I was saying. So you have to be better, right? That they have to be better. And so they were at a certain point, Ryan Gosling meets with a competitor's campaign manager because he's trying to convince Ryan Gosling to come and work for him, right? And so they're all talking kind of generally about the Democrats because it's during the primary for them to win, you know, the spot on the ticket, right? And so they're talking about...
The primaries are vicious.
And...
that's all, like, within the party.
So Paul Giamatti is the opposite chair that's trying to convince Ryan Gosling to come and work for him. So Paul Giamatti is talking about the Democrats need to play harder because that's why the Republicans always win, because they don't always play by the rules. They're not always trying to be good. They're fucking nasty, right? And I have heard no shortage of people say that over the last 10 years, you know, that again, Josh Keaton asked me, he's like, why do you think that, like, the Democrats have these issues? You know, it's like, because they uphold this appearance or have tried to for so long. I'm like, oh, well, we're better than that. You know what I'm saying? We're putting ourselves above this. Like, it's all this shit. And, like, in certain times, like the presidential debates, you have to do that. Joe Biden would have won if he would have not talked shit to Donald Trump during this whole thing, would have kept it together and just gone on about himself. But when you're talking about, like, the dark inner workings of politics, you need to be fucking nasty. You have to be fucking dark and gross so that you can win. So
otherwise, because your opponent's going to do it to you.
Yes, exactly. Because if you're a Democrat, the Republicans are going to do it to you because they don't give a shit. You know what I'm saying?
Everybody wants to go into the campaign and be like, I'm going to run a clean campaign. We're not going to get into the mud. We're not going to start throwing shit.
Exactly.
But they all end up doing it.
You have to play dirty to get to a point where you can play clean, right? Where playing clean is the way to win. Because when you're at that level of, like, of being president, acting presidential is how you win. That's how you get there. Part of why Donald Trump won or lost, in my opinion, is because
lost the debate,
right? Is he was provided with a few opportunities where he could have looked presidential. One of the biggest one maybe that he's ever had in the last 4 years.
It was like on a silver platter.
When they're talking about Beau Biden, right? And he says, oh, do you like Beau Biden, right? My son, all this stuff, like he served, he did this, right? And then he died of cancer. And Donald Trump says, no, I'm talking about Hunter Biden, the one that does drugs and crack cocaine and other shit, right? You had the most golden opportunity to be a president, to act fucking decent for a moment and say, you know what? You're right, and the whole country appreciates your son's service, and I cannot apologize enough that you lost him before his time because of a horrible disease like cancer. And as president, I'm going to do everything I can to rid this country of cancer, rid the world of cancer. That's part of my deal. I'm going to do this, this, and this. Spin it into a thing about how you're going to make healthcare better. Instead, you're like, oh, what's that? Hunter likes to do cocaine. What's up with that Russian money? What about this? Burisma? Blah, blah, blah. What the fuck?
Dude, it was...
Like
you can't get a more straight down the center pitch. Nice, slow, coming right at you. You just got to whack it out of the park. And you can't. You're so blinded by your ego. You can't do that.
And those are the kingmakers, right? And kingmaker, for anybody who doesn't know, is a term that a lot of people use for, like, people who have money, right? Just, I'm a kingmaker. I have the money. I have the power to push somebody into a position of power, right? Those
like
moments.
Tech companies and Elon Musk.
Right. Those are king-making moments right there. When you're running for an office that's that high, that's a kingmaker.
Oh, yeah.
That is for you to act like a fucking president. This was the biggest thing in this whole thing. Shut up, Donald. This whole shut the fuck up. Stop it. Just stop, right?
Call him the president of the United States during a debate, Donald.
Yes. Hands down, worst debate I've ever seen. One of the least productive conversations I have ever seen in my entire life.
If you can even classify it as a conversation.
Joe Biden can't hang. Donald Trump needs to shut the fuck up. And Chris Wallace probably shouldn't have a job on TV anymore. It was one of the worst things I've ever seen in my whole life. It was terrible. The whole thing was terrible.
But did you not, at some point, feel bad for Chris Wallace? Because no matter what you do, I think whoever signed up for this gig as a moderator was committing suicide, career suicide. Because there is no possible way that you can control those two batshit crazy individuals. Biden, can stay in his lane when he needs to because he's shown it before during other debates. Trump can't. He has proven himself time and time again to be uncontrollable.
He's fucking asking for drug tests a few days before the debates. He's like, well, I don't know. I'm pretty sure that Joe Biden's going to be on some type of performance-enhancing drugs, so we should probably do a drug test before.
How much
maybe
sleep
check him for microphones.
Chris Wallace got that night? None. Like, oh fuck, I screwed this thing up. This is terrible.
Think he probably slept a lot after he pounded fucking 2/5 of whiskey when he got back to his house. I can't imagine. I don't know what the fuck I would do if I was Chris Wallace and I left there. I'd be screaming like, what the fuck just happened here?
I probably would have walked out. I'm not gonna lie.
I'm sorry. This was supposed to be the presidential debate, right? Between two people who are going to run the goddamn country. This is how this conversation went for 90 uninterrupted minutes on fucking C-SPAN.
Which is something I really appreciated, though. I will say that.
90 uninterrupted minutes. Huge
that was
fan.
Nice. That was
Big
nice.
Old fan of that. We were watching it as any good parent should, as any good citizens should, because even if you hate him, you should be watching that shit.
Oh, yeah. Even my mom was watching. She was like, "Are you watching this?" I was like, "Of course I am."
I'm
sorry that you are watching this, but yes.
I was talking to Larry Dixon on Twitter. I was talking to Josh Keenan on Twitter. I was live tweeting, bro. I was hitting it. And so at a certain point, Dax has to go to bed. And so like we started the bath, and Jordan's watching it on her phone in the bathroom while he's taking his bath. And I have the volume turned up on the TV so I can hear it while I'm like cleaning up and like doing all that shit out in the living room. It was like felt two very different ways, right? On one hand, I was like, this is extremely entertaining. At certain points I was laughing, certain points my mouth was agape because I was so shocked. And at the same time, I was deeply, deeply saddened that this is the current state of American politics, that these are the two people, because neither of these two men deserve to be president. No. With what I saw there, neither of those two men deserve to be president.
And Brett Weinstein just maybe a week and a half ago stood down Unity 2020. He stood it down. He said, no, we're too close anymore. It's these two people. Everybody, we're not going to fuck with the vote anymore. We're out. Bro, this is the time.
Yeah.
Unity should be around. Dan Crenshaw and Tulsi Gabbard running for president.
There were
VP.
more.
Can you imagine that ticket?
They're
two. Like, I don't agree with both of them necessarily, but I like them as people, and I would love to see both of them working together as a team to lead the country.
3 weeks ago on a Wednesday in the Murder Garage, me, John, and Casey, we said the exact same thing. Is that I would vote for a Gabbard Crenshaw ticket all day. All day.
Especially in comparison to this fuckery.
For me, it would have to be Gabbard Crenshaw, but I would vote for it. I would do it.
Too.
I would vote for that. There's not enough shit that I agree with Dan Crenshaw on for him to be my guy.
Yeah.
But I agree.
He's as close on that side as that I can find.
Core principles of being tied to the Constitution, I appreciate, and I know that pressed, he would make the right decision.
Yep.
For me, on Dan Crenshaw, there's like so much publicity and shit like that around him that it like really he's like a total shill for the Republican Party at the end of the day. You know what I'm saying? Because he's still so new.
Yeah.
But
which I don't necessarily hold against him too much, because I understand that at this point you still need to play the game.
But I still can't get down for you if that's how you're going to be.
Right?
I can't.
It's fucked.
Yeah.
Like there's
unfortunately
it's a double-edged sword. I need you to be this way, but I know also that you'll never really get institutional power that way.
Because he'll be more productive within the party that way and within the system. Whereas Tulsi Gabbard, you're on the primary, I'm throwing my hat in for you because she's like, I don't give a fuck. I'm going to vote how I want. I'm going to say what the fuck I want. I'm going to keep winning my seat because these people get down with it in Hawaii and fuck the rest of the party. So I appreciate that, that mentality. But as a Republican, he doesn't necessarily have that freedom, or else he's Rand Paul. And you're going to be the butt of everyone's joke for the rest of forever.
And you're going to get shit kicked out of you. And
Rand Paul or the curly-haired guy. What's the curly-haired guy's name?
You know what I'm talking about. I do. He's the other guy. Jason Amash? No.
No. This guy's white.
The other guy.
This guy's white.
Amash. No. I know who you're talking about, though. Yeah. Massey. Thomas Massey. He was...
I don't think
pretty
that's
strong.
Either.
No? Shit.
No. That's okay.
But
he's
real
really
close to that.
Yeah.
Ron Paul lane.
Yes.
And Rand had a stroke. You saw that?
Yeah, it's no good.
But he's doing good from the looks of it.
So let's keep going with this.
Yep.
Right? So the first thing I talked about was
Can I leave you for a second?
What's that?
Can I leave you for a second? Can you monologue on something? Yeah. I'm about to burst for some reason.
No, that's fine. So let's see here. What's the next thing that I have here? Another thing that I have a huge problem with, that we kind of talked about a little bit last week when John Sadek was here, is, and Colin even lent to it a little bit, is talking about the politicization of the Supreme Court. So many of our issues, I believe, especially regarding laws, come down from this, and there was a huge moment where Joe Biden was talking about Roe v. Wade being on the ballot in the courts, and this is on the ballot in the courts, and all this stuff is on the ballot in the courts, and that's because he is presuming with open evidence of the way that Judge Amy Coney Barrett is going to rule on certain cases if they're put in front of her in the Supreme Court. I understand, because like I said, of the evidence of the things that she's written, the things that she said, why people would think that she might rule that way. But we've also seen just in the last 4 years through Neil Gorsuch and through Brett Kavanaugh that the people that have written certain things and espouse certain opinions will not necessarily rule that way because that's not their fucking job.
Yeah.
And bless you, so many people, regular citizens, are not able to get past that because their parents and the media is telling you this is a liberal judge, this is a conservative justice, oh, they hate Roe v. Wade, they hate all this shit. They're embedding it in you that you can't even conceive of somebody ruling against their personal opinion, because why would they fucking do that? Because it's not their job. We should all hope, please, everyone, don't hear what I'm not saying, right? In the context of this conversation, we should all hope for more justices like Brett Kavanaugh and Neil Gorsuch, because they have gone in there and they have ruled against things, ruled in ways that go against their personal opinions that they hold politically and personally. That's what a good judge does. That's what a good Supreme Court justice does.
Yeah.
It's not about their opinion. It's about the way that the Constitution is laid out. And I was saying that you had talked about that just on like the previous topic, that so many of our problems are coming from that. And people are just not even taught that anymore, So I had a huge problem with Joe Biden talking about things being on the ballot in the courts. You know what I'm saying? Because that's not the way we should even be explaining things to people. Is for sure if Donald Trump puts somebody in, they're going to rule against Roe v. Wade. You're not going to be able to get abortions. Your uterus is locked up. You don't have any women's rights anymore. Hold on. Yeah. That's a fucking woman. She's a woman. That's a lady. And you're talking about how she's against women's rights. She's a fucking woman. Like, I'm shocked it's like a...
Well, the nice thing is it's not gaining too much traction anymore.
No,
a lot of these things are being thrown against her, and then it's like, not really.
The women's rights thing...
You can't just smear him like he did Kavanaugh.
Right.
Smear her.
Using women's rights as like
the shield.
A pseudonym for like abortion rights, you know what I'm saying, is really odd, because that's like just to say that there are no women who are pro-life, you know what I'm saying, that don't believe that should happen, which is not fucking true, and I think that's fucking weird.
But like when you take the point of the argument, when you take a stand in the argument where you say, okay, no, I support a woman's right to choose. That's the ultimate woman's right.
Right.
And so they devolve it to that 150,000 foot view of it, and then they could just say, well, she's not for women's rights. I mean,
it's weird,
bro.
That's
I don't
a weird
how you are trying to. I know what you're saying.
That's a hard sell.
I don't know how you're trying to justify
that. That's a hard sell.
It is.
Like calling black people racist, and like the new, and this is like slightly off, but like just in the last couple of weeks, because of Amy Coney Barrett, right? Of like, oh well, so people who adopt black children, like they can also be racist.
Courtesy of
and
Ibram X. Kendi, author of How to Be an Anti-Racist.
I suppose
one of the most racist public figures that I have experienced in my lifetime.
I suppose that it is certainly possible for a white person to be racist and also adopt black children, but it does seem that it would be counter to their core ideals to take care of somebody that they believe is inherently inferior to them. And that's not to say that they couldn't adopt them to mistreat them. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. I'm sure that there's at least one example somebody could
to try to quote unquote, better.
Right. But there doesn't seem to be any evidence that
I think humans are better
Judge
than that.
Amy Coney Barrett is adopting children from Haiti, I believe, to hold power over them, to exhibit that's a hard sell,
them from their savage ways or whatever.
That seems really
said.
Weird.
Yeah. You gotta really despise humanity, I think, to believe that is, you can't believe that it doesn't exist. Because I'm sure it does.
Certainly it does.
Right? But you have to be really fucked up to think that, like, that's the norm.
Well, that's what Ibram Kendi was like. He's like, I'm not saying that this is what he was tweeting when he's like, I'm not saying this is what she's doing, but historically people have, adopted black children so that they can do this and this and this. Like, if you're not saying that's what she's doing, then why are you bringing that up when you're talking about her, like, having adopted 2 children from Haiti?
I'm not saying, but I'm just saying.
Right. I'm not saying that you're a racist, but a lot of racists I know do that type of shit. That's just weird. And
that's where we're at.
And it's like totally acceptable, to like call her a racist, even though she has fucking black. That's so backwards, bro. I just don't understand
But again, I think the effectiveness, like on a political level and, on like a confirmation level, we'll say, I think the effectiveness of those are not as sticky as they would be hoping for.
Right. I just mean the willingness to attribute things to people before they've even met them. They not even met them, because I know we would, and most people will likely not ever meet any of the Supreme Court justices, but people that they literally know nothing about.
But I mean, it's very. I don't want to say it's very similar, because that was a really intense situation. But what they did with Kavanaugh, like all these things, like
right.
The fact that somebody's willing to believe something like what Abram X. Kendi is spouting at this point, without giving them the benefit of the doubt of being a modern day human being, and just assuming that they are the worst person. Somebody that did that and believes in that kind of thing, you could label as one of the worst human beings on the face of the planet at this point. To assume that out of all the people, she's one of those, that just seems like on a fundamental human level. Yeah. You got some real growing up to do, because that is a disgusting idea to think of how the world might be.
And I think from like you were talking about earlier, on like an individual stance of a regular person, I can see from the way that the Supreme Court has taught to people why an individual might assume things about a certain justice, but it's, I think, particularly dark for me to see a presidential candidate on the stage openly saying that this is how it's going to be, when that's so counter to how it should be, and he knows that. And that's kind of what I was talking about, like at that point of being president, like so much of your job is optics and ideological things, and like, so if you're not even expressing the right ideology, then like I can't buy in for that, know. And then like
it runs counter to the core. I guess you'd have to call it an ideology at that point. The American ideology, the core fundamental of liberty and freedom. And if your ideology runs counter to that, how are you even in this race? You don't belong in the system that we are in, obviously.
And because that's not even a hurdle anymore, right, especially for the Democratic Party, there's now the discussion, and Joe Biden refused to answer this question, of packing the courts, right, or just doing away with a filibuster, right? And
he refuses. I listened to fucking Shapiro, I think from Friday. I listened to it today. He played clips of Biden being asked that, like, I think 12 different times. Refuses to answer that question. Which is in political speech, that tells us that, like, it's not out of the realm of possibility. It's probably a good probability that he's probably down for it, which means it's an unpopular decision, which also means he's not going to talk about it right now.
Right.
Because if you look at the ideology that is backing him to become president, it runs deep. I mean, everything from the PSA type folks to the MSNBC
Warren,
folks. And within the party themselves.
Right.
Like, that's why he will not refuse to answer that question, is because he can't say the answer. Because it is literally, like, fundamentally, if he was to say, we're going to look at that next, he fundamentally should not be running for president.
Right.
Because that is not okay.
Which I think is probably one of the better points that President Trump could have made, is because it was around
incapable of making them.
Well, it was around this time that Joe Biden also then said, like, I am the party right now. You know, I am the Democratic Party. Like,
really, Joe?
This is the platform that, like, I decided. You know, like, you and Bernie Sanders wrote that platform together. Like, you guys gangbanged that. That was a 50-50 deal. So
pyramid scheme.
Exactly. So I think I don't really know.
It's disgusting to watch.
I don't like that the president didn't take that opportunity, because that's an immediate and obvious sign of hypocrisy, right? Of like, oh, well, I am the party right now, but I can't tell you what I would do because it'll immediately split everybody beneath me because they don't actually agree with what I'm saying. I'm just kind of running on what I know that these people will support in general, which is like, that's
what happens
you
in
aren't
the Vox
the party.
Populi.
Right. And I also think it's interesting because so many people we know are saying, I don't like Joe Biden, but I dislike him less than I dislike Donald Trump, so I'm going to vote for him.
Mm-hmm.
You are not the party. Your ideology, your thought process, your platform, if you were to draw it up yourself, is not what the Democratic Party wants right now.
Yep.
They just hate Donald Trump so much
Orange man
that
bad.
they're going to do it. And that's, bro, I'm telling you, even our close friends, you know what I'm saying?
I know all
he's
too
not
well.
perfect. I don't like him. I watched the debate. I like him even less, but I'm still going to vote for him.
Yep.
What the fuck? You know? And it's...
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Orange man bad.
It's crazy that Joe Biden... I wonder if he actually thinks that, or if he's just saying that. Or
It's
if
like,
he's
is it the old, I am the party because the party has its hand up, and
Right.
I am the party. Or is it like, no. He's saying, I myself embody the party. It's like, no. You are a ventriloquist doll for the party. So yeah, technically you are the party. You ain't lying.
Or
but
if he's as disconnected mentally as like Donald Trump thinks that he is, then I wonder if the people around him have just convinced him that
because that
he
could
is
go
the
either
party.
way.
You know what I'm saying?
That could really
I'm
go
right
either way.
because I'm not trying to make any assertions. I don't know.
I'm not going to say if he's got dementia.
because
but
I was also
I'm just going to say he's in his mid-70s.
I was pleasantly
all I'm
surprised with his. He looked better than I expected him to. Joe
He did.
Biden. He held
He
it
did.
together better than I expected him to, and I think had Donald Trump not been so crazy, he would have looked even better.
Oh, man.
Other than the times where he was openly contradicting himself with what he was saying, right? But his actual speech and like not slurring and
Yeah.
way better than I expected. it
Very
to
little
be.
flubs. He did.
But-
he had his standard flub of
I had some good
not
quotes.
getting the right numbers.
I was tweeting
you
some
know?
quotes, you
Yeah,
know.
he likes to add a couple zeros to all these numbers in the stats, and then he'll eventually get down there. But
Yeah.
but those are honest, right? We
Right.
understand. He's not trying to lie about things like those versus everything else that we're talking about is actually something that is it begs the question, are you lying and being deceptive, or are you like, what do you actually think?
Right.
Or are you just trying to remain neutral the whole
Right.
time, which is infuriating.
Yeah, so I'm interested where that idea comes from that he
Mm-hmm.
is the party, because that seems like it's so obviously incorrect, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't even think you have to be deep in the politics game to see that. I mean, if just watching regular, even if you just listen to some political podcasts, some fucking, maybe not Pod Save America because they like to deep throw Biden pretty hard, but like pretty much everybody else, yeah, like they tell you that they don't like Joe Biden, but this is where we're at, you know, and we hate Donald Trump.
It's bad enough that we have to get Orange Man
Right.
bad out. Doesn't
Right.
matter what this guy says. And at the end of the day, he's just a tool for us anyways. So it doesn't matter. Orange Man has to go. Biden has to be elected. That is a common argument that I
Yeah.
get from people that I know anyways.
I found it very interesting, the different companies that I've seen who are pushing messages of voting this year that I didn't see in 2016, right? The NFL, right, are like a big voting campaign. On every app that I open, are you registered to vote? Are you doing this, right?
I don't know if I
Tyler,
like
the
that.
Creator, different celebrities that are just coming out and saying, just vote, just vote, just
Yeah.
vote, right? And maybe not individual celebrities, but certainly companies that I'm seeing that are telling people to vote that they didn't tell to vote in 2016, that in my personal opinion, it seems that they're exposing their inner ideology, you know what I'm saying? That like, so when Donald Trump, when it didn't seem like he was going to win in 2016, you didn't care. But now that it's like, you know, a referendum on Trump, quote unquote, everybody needs to vote, right? Like, so the NFL, everybody, it's not go out and vote for Joe Biden because
Yeah.
people don't actually like Joe Biden. Go and vote because they are hoping that most people dislike Donald Trump enough to vote for Joe Biden. You know what I'm saying?
And that could honestly be
Euphemisms.
A euphemism.
That's the word I was
There it
trying to
is.
think of earlier when we were talking about women's rights and abortion rights,
Yes.
right? It's a euphemism. It's
Yeah.
like we're saying this, but it really is what we're talking about. Yeah,
Arrangement,
and
yeah.
that's like
Oh,
it's-
and that's what politics is.
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
the language of euphemisms.
and it seems like voting is almost a euphemism now for vote
For us.
for Joe Biden.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Go out and vote for the left.
Yeah.
Like that's
when
you know
they
what I'm
tell
saying?
you to vote, they feel like they have just told you a message that will convince you to vote for them.
Right.
Because it's like, hey man, if this is important to you, you should make sure to go register to vote. And that,
So I just think it's interesting.
yeah.
You know?
Well, and I've been slowly. I have this list of notes that I've been building to this piece that I want to write, which is a case for voter apathy. And I think we've talked about it before. But every time I try to lay these ideas out, I sound like we should become essentially like a plutocracy. And I'm like, that's not, I don't like that. But there is some validity into, like we talked about earlier, low information voters and their ability to participate in a system which they are not educated on or informed about, right?
Yeah.
It seems rather terrifying to me that the further we go along, we get closer to that 51 versus the 49, that like that becomes more and more to the point where like I don't think like the line between pure democracy and a republic, a democratic republic, is basically like the idea that most people, a lot of people think that their vote doesn't count or blah, blah, blah. And so they just don't care enough to actually register, or even if they are registered, there's a lot of people that are registered that don't actually go and vote. They'll get a mail-in ballot, they'll do everything, but they just don't care enough to go and vote, right? I don't think those people should vote. I think if you have the ability to, but you don't, you definitely shouldn't.
Yeah.
Because obviously you don't care enough about how the system is. The system, because why do we vote? Why do we vote, Donovan?
To express our opinions, to have a say.
To have a say in the way in which we all live our lives, right? Because that's something I've been using a lot with a lot of people I know now about, like, well, I don't like politics, I'm like this. Like, but do you enjoy the society that you live in and how you live your life, or like the laws that you hate or the taxes you don't like to pay, or whatever? Like, well, newsflash, buddy, I hate to tell you, that is politics. That's a direct manifestation of what politics is to this country.
Everybody says they hate politics. Everybody loves to complain about politics.
Exactly, but everybody loves living their fucking life.
Yeah.
Right? We don't all pack up and move and do the work that you need to do to get out of the country, because it does take work, unlike most people that always proclaim they're going to move to Canada if so-and-so gets elected this year.
I said I might move to Canada if Donald Trump gets elected. I said that. I really felt that way.
You have a much easier into Canada than most people. I will say that much. I will say that. But
I could probably get sponsored to move to Canada.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you could.
Do that.
Like I said, though, at least a lot better opportunity than most regular people.
Yeah.
But then nobody ever actually attempts to do that, right? Which
I'm not giving them my ARs. I can't move to Canada.
So it's like there is something to be said about a lot of these people that just have ill-informed or uninformed opinions about how, why you should vote for Joe Biden or whatever, and to see these more and more companies and more corporations jumping on board with this political bandwagon.
Yeah.
Because that, I think it also empowers them, but that's a whole other side convo.
Certainly.
Yeah, it's a whole other side convo, but like pretty soon it's like, if you are a Republican, quote unquote, if you're on red team, you only buy these shoes, you only go to these supermarkets, you only go to here because they support our causes. And then the other country, and that's if you could even get to that point without some kind of civil conflict. But
now you're just
so
getting fucking
unhealthy.
canceled. Now it's not even I'm not gonna buy that, I'm gonna buy this. It's I don't think that should exist. Nobody should be able to buy that. Which is
and I'm gonna burn it after I bought it because capitalism's bad. So but again, to go back to like that kind of rolling hypocrisy that was coming out of Joe Biden's mouth, and the inability for Trump to call him out on it, man. It was like softball after softball after softball, but he was so involved in just like attack, that he missed every single ball that was thrown at him.
And on that note, right, here's another, we can kind of move to another topic of like COVID, right?
Yeah. And this seems chaotic, but this is how the debate went.
It's exactly how it went. This is exactly how it went. Yeah. And so one of the first questions that was asked about COVID is if Joe Biden and Kamala Harris were making, the skepticism around the vaccine worse. And Joe Biden was like, no, that's crazy, blah, blah, blah. And like, oh, she never said that. Like, even though there are actual interviews where she says like, oh, well, I don't know, if a vaccine comes out before November, we should maybe be skeptical of it.
We should be very.
How does that not how is that not increasing skepticism around a COVID vaccination? And we've talked about it before. If it comes out, I'm going to wait like a while before I'm going to get me a vaccine.
We're not one of those high risk populations either.
I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. I'm saying I personally am going to wait.
And I think we have the, dare I say, the privilege of saying that, because we are not a high-risk population,
right?
Which is nice, because there is risk,
right?
There's always risk to vaccines, BT dubs, even the fucking flu vaccine that everybody gets every year. Certain people die every year. We have a fund in the United States government that is directly for paying for these, those the problems that happen with vaccines. Right?
Yeah.
Adverse reaction.
Yeah, because it's not perfect, and you can't account for every individual.
We have a public fund that pays money to people
Right.
that do die or their kids die or whatever it is from vaccines, because it does happen. But that being said, again, it doesn't have to be a political view to choose whether or not you want to take or partake in a vaccine, especially when it first comes out.
Right.
But the way in which Kamala Harris does frame her argument against it, or does frame her speculation against it, is 100% political.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't trust Trump and his Operation Warp Speed or whatever it's called. So like to get a safe, reliable vaccine to the market. So
Right.
I'm not gonna take it if it comes out underneath the Trump administration.
When in reality,
You are high,
Donald
woman.
Trump has zero of anything to do with the vaccine because it's all being done by fucking scientists.
Yeah.
Like
So
this has nothing to do with any politicians or
Yeah.
anything. It's fucking scientists. And I think it was on commentary. They were saying like where they should be saying if a good vaccine comes out before November, we should be celebrating a medical fucking miracle that these doctors were able to cook this up and get this done. But instead, she's saying we shouldn't trust it, right? And this is another, I think, missed opportunity by Donald Trump. This particular statement, and then to bring it to a broader discussion of like political extortion when he was talking about the certain states that aren't opening, until like November 9th, until after the election. Like that's a larger point that you can draw about a political extortion is like a big word, you know what I'm saying? It's like a large idea, but the idea that there are democratic cities and states that are remaining closed until after the election because of one reason or another, or other people that are doing things that are affecting people's lives because of their political ideologies and they differ from that of the president, is extremely dark. And I think that was a huge missed opportunity to not hit on that and to be talking about how the Democratic Party, Joe Biden, Kamala Harris are talking about how I don't care if I'm Donald Trump, right? Talking about I don't care about people's health. I'm so, whatever, so flippant. And here they're asking you to put your life in question, your safety in question, because they don't agree with me politically, when this has nothing to do with politics, like that's
As far as reopening states and stuff.
reopening states, vaccinations, any of this shit.
okay.
You know what I'm saying? That they're saying, no, we need to stay closed, we need to do all this stuff, right? And I'm not planting my stake in the ground on either way, but when they are, like you said, making these what should be scientific decisions so blatantly political, that's a huge point for you to make.
I'd take it a step further to say that at this point, we have all but politicized science in general due to the pandemic.
Yeah.
And in which case, it allows them the freedom to kind of step all over science and still call it science or not, depending on which view you have and which states you're talking about, but all towards the aims of this political endeavor of, like you said, like choosing not to reopen till after the election,
right?
But it's been systematic, and it's been since. I mean, it probably took a week or two for COVID to become political, 100%.
Yeah.
And then within that, COVID got to grab. I mean, it wasn't long. I mean, we laugh, but that's as sad as it is. Perhaps it was days, but we get to that point where within that own COVID, we've decided now that science in general is politicized, and it's free to do that.
And just to be fair, right? If Donald Trump runs with that point, they're going to hit him on mass. They're going to talk, well, you said this and this about math. But at the same time, the scientists at the same time were saying that, right? And he kept on way after they said that you should be wearing masks. But in the beginning, we talked about it. Fauci, the fucking Surgeon General, were saying like, oh, you don't wear them because, for a minute they said we need them to preserve them for this.
It was so important that they lied to us about wearing them because they were so important. They wanted them to get them to just the first line workers.
Yes.
That's how important it was.
So I'm only going to attribute so much of that to Donald Trump because there were actual workers, there scientists that were trying to push that narrative, which was fucking stupid, right? But like they're certainly going to hit him on that, but the fact that he didn't run with that, and then again talking about like closing the borders to China and shit like that it's 1,000% true that everybody in the Democratic Party called him xenophobic for closing flights to China.
And Nancy
That's
Pelosi be out there like, come on down
true.
to Chinatown, come on down to here. Everybody get out and about.
And when he says that,
everything's okay. Gather en masse. It's not a problem.
And when Donald Trump says that, Joe Biden laughs. He's like, that's not true.
That's not true.
That's exactly what happened. You guys called him fucking xenophobic for closing flights to China. That happened. That absolutely happened. And now you're saying it didn't. Like,
we used to all be really angry about it.
They're fucking.
Don't you remember?
It's gaslighting.
6 out of 7 of the news networks were all super angry about it.
And the fact that Donald Trump does not continue to hit home on this, you know what I'm saying? Doesn't keep fucking hammering about, like, do you see now how the Democrats are politicizing this and they're trying to make it seem like I'm mismanaging and all this shit when this is what they said and this is what they're doing and now they're talking this about vaccines? That's all anybody gives a shit about right now. Like, it's crazy.
He's the closest version it's the closest we've ever gotten, say, like, as a populace who think that way, who would like to call out the insanity of the politicization and stuff like that. He is the first embodiment of somebody who's been willing to call it out.
Yeah.
But he's incapable of doing it. He's willing to. He
Loose
tries,
cannon, bro.
but he sucks at it. He is about the worst person we could have on our side to get out there and be like, oh yeah, intersectionalism is super terrible and it leads to crazy shit. You can't do all that because that's blatantly unconstitutional.
Critical race theory.
Exactly.
And they start talking about that.
You can't
racial
even
sensitivity training.
The fact that when Chris Wallace talks about bringing up his coming out against racial sensitivity training, that is not what anybody is coming out.
Can't even say that's not what I did. Like,
he's coming out against critical race theory, but Trump doesn't know what critical. He might have an idea of what it is, but he can't describe it.
No.
He can't, much less defend it, or
can't articulate that.
He
no,
cannot articulate. Just like I can't articulate what I'm trying to say right now. Like, he can't articulate the proper arguments that need to be made against those things to actually convince the everyday normal people of America that, like, this is a really fucking bad idea and it leads to 100+ days of violence in Portland. That's why it's bad.
Even when he tried, he was like,
you can't do it.
He was like hitting good general points.
Yeah.
But if you don't know what he's talking about, he just sounds like he's fucking rambling about
it just gets lost in the rest of the
about
chaos
racial sensitivity training, right? And that's I was trying to do my best to
Another reason
tweet that about the time, because when he was talking about that, and Joe Biden says nobody's teaching that. You know what I'm saying? That's not true. There are not only is it in
all
different
over the
companies,
Twitter machine,
right?
You could see it,
but even on a global scale, we've talked about like agents from China and shit like that coming to schools to teach this type of ideology so that it shifts like the political ideologies in America. We've seen that. It's not even just domestically that it's happening. It's happening internationally, that people are coming here and teaching youth this, and then as an adult, if you already are out of college, we're going to come to your work and you're going to learn this, right? It's fucking everywhere. And so for Joe Biden to be like, oh, that's not happening,
and grifters and stuff
certainly,
like that. Been doing
certainly.
that too. But on a super quick side note, it's kind of a conspiracy theory that I've been building in my head recently. So, just go with me on it, because I know you on the Epoch Times and the fuck China train.
Fuck the CCP.
CCP, not China, because China's dope. But does this not perfectly mesh with... Okay, well, this is what I'm really interested to see happen. Okay.
Yes.
The CCP and the Chinese Communist Party.
Yes.
They operate in such a long game.
Oh,
generally, right?
Decades, bro.
Right. And I think, like, Hong Kong, was a misstep on their end. I think that came too quick.
They fucked up.
They thought they saw an opportunity, and they realized now they got greedy. And
I think social media, too. Social media got them just like they're getting everybody here.
That's true. And they weren't expecting a lot of these things. But when you think about the fomentation of the, how far they've gone as far as, like, infiltrating the United States, in all these various institutions where they, we've had examples now, we've talked about them on the show, I'm pretty sure, of them fomenting some of this type of stuff to just cause chaos. The same operation as the Russians, except they're just not as severe about it as the Chinese. But, like, at this point, with Trump getting the COVIDs, and possibly be in a compromised position. We'll know a lot more over the next, say, 48 hours of how bad it's going to be or not.
Yeah.
Um,
Certainly the next week.
I can see. I don't know. I'll be curious to find out if China or the CCP has learned their Hong Kong lesson, or if it's emboldened them, because this would be a perfect time on the global stage for them to take another. Say like, okay, well now the pearl that we've been wanting, Taiwan, is now Americans occupied right now because Trump's sick or whatever.
Yeah.
We can scoop that up real quick and move on, and possibly kick off World War III, or possibly nobody really cares and we get Taiwan. That's just my running conspiracy theory about how things might go.
Yeah.
You don't need to comment because it's a lot there.
No,
But
and
I've heard a little bit of speculation now on like, given after this debate, how many, because the debate was watched worldwide.
Yeah.
Obviously, right?
Millions, tens of millions of people.
And that was one of the things that was going through my head watching this thing. Is like, God, there's people like in France, in Sweden right now,
laughing at us, bro.
Laughing
at
bro.
us.
Laughing because
these guys are idiots.
Yeah, and I'm just like head in hands, shaking my head with disgust and outrage and all these things.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's a quick aside. I'm sorry. I told you we take.
No,
a quick aside.
you're fine.
But that's my.
I
as far as when it comes to some of this, just overall debate stuff, it's one of them things that I can't get out of my mind.
I don't think that. I'm not sure. I think it depends on who, though, and this is just my first reaction to it. I think it depends on who China thinks is going to win the election.
Like, it might be a completely
Right.
baseless theory.
I think that if China thinks that Joe Biden might win the election, then they might take that shot because during the Obama administration, Russia was able
Light
to
gloves.
annex Crimea, and
Yeah.
what the fuck happened? Nothing.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? They're just still
Why
fighting,
can't they
and it
take
is what it
Taiwan?
is. Exactly. But during the Trump administration, shit like that has not worked. And so I think that it depends. I think if China thinks that Trump is likely to stay,
Yeah.
then
I mean, Trump really didn't do anything. Again, sanctions, economic stuff.
right,
like that
right.
against
And I know-
Crimea, because
and I-
he should have as the incoming president. You don't just like, well, they took it, whatever.
I
It's like,
mean, as
well,
far
no,
as
but-
like Hong Kong, like when that shit started to happen, Trump spoke out openly against
Yeah.
that. He was like,
Which
this
was
is not okay.
Yeah.
And when it was happening in Crimea, Obama he did talk about it, obviously, because it was happening, but nothing. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And at that point, like
Even
I
the
said, when
support
Trump
that we were
came in,
offering him.
and when Trump came in, he wasn't as hard on Russia verbally as the Obama administration was. Obama was very outspoken, very not openly aggressive with Russia, but like obviously didn't like Vladimir Putin, and the same cannot be said for Donald Trump.
We
And
talked
so
about this when we were talking about Trump and Ukraine and the Ukrainian president.
and so
stuff like
I wouldn't
Because that's-
expect as
yeah.
harsh of a reaction from Donald Trump towards Russia as I would against China.
Yeah.
Whereas if the same Chinese shit happened during the Obama administration, I wouldn't expect as harsh of a response towards China from Obama.
And when
Because
did the
it just
TPP come
wasn't
into play?
Like his dude, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I'm
Because
not
TPP
sure.
2016, that was during the Obama administration.
Yeah,
2000,
right at the end.
Drafted the 15. Yes, I mean, and like that right there, that might be one of the things that like China would be like, hey man, what's up? Come on, Biden.
So I think that it depends. And we've seen that now. We heard that just a few months ago, that China and Russia, we had seen that from the intelligence agencies that they now were showing preference towards Joe Biden. You know what I'm saying? So it's
They have
obvious,
a lot of money to make.
obvious that they think that there's benefit to a Biden presidency. So I would have to know the inner workings of the CCP
Which of course we can't.
to know for certain. But
Especially because this
it's
guy's
possible.
on the set.
I
Will
think
never
it's
be allowed in
possible.
China.
If it does develop to a point that Donald Trump is compromised in health, it's possible. And I saw, I don't know if it's true or not. Maybe you can look this up for me real quick. I saw that they had moved a missile carrier off of the coast, off of the East Coast. And I don't know if that's true because I saw it on social media and then didn't look it up afterwards. I
The
was
U.S.
doing
moved
something.
a missile carrier?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, off of the East Coast. That once it was announced that he had COVID, we moved like a big boy carrier just off the shore of the East Coast.
I would just say that without confirming that, Trump says military has poised for COVID vaccine distribution. No. I would say just generally thinking, war gaming it out, like as far as a standard defensive move, if the head of government, the head of state, just like Boris Johnson was when he was down with COVID, the military would take a more aggressive defensive stance.
Yeah.
Just to show, like, hey, any of you motherfuckers think about doing anything, we still ready to pull the trigger on your ass.
Yeah.
Don't think about it. I wouldn't doubt it. An initial, I'm no Jamie, but an initial Google glance is not helping me out here.
That's fine. It may have
Yeah, a lot of them are a lot older.
a made-up thing. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I wouldn't doubt it though, because even if it was truly happening right now, it would make strategic and logical sense.
Yeah.
And no aggression would necessarily stem from it. It is something that we have done multiple times in the past. We do it on relatively like good sources of like counter-terrorist information and stuff like that. When we get certain intel, certain military aspects will be, activated and thrown into a defensive stance. It happens a lot more than we know. So I wouldn't be surprised. But I don't think it would necessarily mean anything, even if it was right.
Doesn't really matter.
No retraction required.
Yeah, so I couldn't answer for certain, but it's certainly interesting to think, part of the reason I am concerned about the president's health, when we talked about it, is because he's not generally regarded as healthy. You know what I'm saying? I mean,
it's kind of he's got that Keith Richards thing going on.
He doesn't look healthy.
How are you alive right now?
We, and again, it was the New York Times, so who knows? But I mean, there was all that reporting when he first got into office about like all the soda and shit that he's consuming, like all the junk food and like all that shit.
Well,
so,
we've seen how many times have we seen that? Where
when
he comes in with
he brought
a smorgasbord of fucking McDonald's.
When he brought Clemson in, and he had all the fast food, right?
Yep.
So.
That dude's been eating nothing but that his whole life.
He doesn't look healthy. You know what I'm saying?
He's on a lot of amphetamines.
And I'm sure that he's been taking something, to try and raise his immune system. I'd hope that he's taking some type of multivitamin at least, But
5,000 BCUs or whatever.
He's not healthy.
No.
So he
never has been
concerned about that.
And that is something I think every American should be concerned about. Our head of state, the President of the United States, has got a brand new disease that we have all been subject to deal with over the last 10 months-ish, really harshly, maybe 7 months, which has proven to be deadly, especially with comorbidities, which I believe President Trump has at least one, which
he doesn't
is obesity.
have like diabetes or anything, but he does appear to be obese.
He's 100% obese. I think you can say that
medically,
as a fact.
yeah.
Because technically, due to my build, I'm borderline obese, which is weird because of the way BMI and stuff has worked. But like
your scale said my BMI was like 30. That's absurd.
Okay.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Like, I don't even know what that technically means.
I don't fucking know either, but I know the 30 is horrible, and I know that I'm not obese, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah. But he is. Good. And we know that, I think. So that is a confirmed.
Who fucking knows what BMI is,
You heard it here first. Number one breaking news, Trump is obese, and that is a comorbidity to COVID-19. So that's probably also one of the reasons why he is at the hospital right now. And contrary to a lot of the news articles I keep reading, which is like, he's going to be super sick, blah, blah, blah. Of course, why would the president be, airlifted to the hospital if he's not super sick? Because he's the fucking president, and because he's 76 and he's very unhealthy, they're going to move him to the hospital just in case. It's okay if he hangs out there for a few days if nothing happens. And if something happens, they're right there.
And they literally have nothing else to be doing because that's all that Walter Reed is there for.
They are there for the president.
They have nothing else to be doing.
It's like, this is our time to shine. The president's sick. Get him here.
I was listening to them talk about it on the news, and they were like talking about all these different conference rooms, and there's a private chef so that the food is fresh and blah, 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 blah.
Did I ever tell you about the time that I almost got a job as a White House cook?
No.
Yeah.
Let's hear it.
I was in the running. Did
you have to try out for it, or like what?
Essentially, yeah. Like you have to be recommended by multiple people, and then they have to come. We have a thing in the Coast Guard that comes down once a year to all the. They don't hit every unit because it's really hard, and it's kind of a dog and pony show, sideshow. But like, there's a best cook in the Coast Guard once every year. Right, and it's on all these different platforms, and if you're on a giant ship.
Did you ever win Best Cook in the Coast Guard?
No, I didn't. I got real close. I got number 2, I think, in our round, and I lost out to the dude that was on Chopped.
Oh, your homeboy that's on
My
Chopped.
homeboy,
Okay.
bro.
Yeah. Okay.
That dude is cool as fuck. Everybody go out and watch Chopped to find his episodes. It's the military appreciation one. It's all military cooks. And we all berated him like no other because he lost in the first round. And it was because he was being stupid. But anyways.
Idiot.
Yeah, no, there is a program in which one of the cooks that cooks at the White House is from the Coast Guard, and you can all try out for it and stuff, and it comes from that competition that comes out annually, and I placed number 2, and I could have gotten that job, and I was, in fact, offered the job once on the side, because at the end of the day, even if you win the competition, most people don't want to go to Washington, D.C. and do that job, so I got offered it, and I was like, nah, I don't know, you know, and I was an ignorant fuck back then. I was like, nah, fucking Obama.
I was gonna ask.
I was like, Obama's in. I don't want to go cook for Obama. Fuck that. He's anti-military.
That would have been so sick, though.
It would have been
amazing.
Yeah, it would have been a great career move, but you know,
you'd have probably got racks to fucking good money to put work there.
Yeah, I was too busy trying to go over to where homeboy Zeke's at, and because that's a really hard job. I think we talked about it when he was on. I tried to go over there to Bahrain. Multiple years, and it's incredibly hard to go, and incredibly, it's rough competition, and I've never made it. So it was tough. But
should have just gone to the White House, you idiot.
I know, so stupid. But anyways,
yes. So, the next thing that I have written down about taxes, right? They started to talk about President Trump's taxes, and so this is something that's come out just in the last week, I think, a New York Times story that they said that they were able to get their hands on 10 years of Donald Trump's taxes.
Yeah. This was like a little bit more than the last Rachel Maddow, you know.
Right, because then she ended up having nothing at the end of the day. I fucking watched Rachel Maddow for a whole goddamn hour for her to have nothing.
And that is, if that's not Rachel Maddow's show, I don't know what is.
Yeah.
That's the, the nice summary of what it is.
So it came out that in, 2015 and 2016, I think, that President Trump paid $750 in federal income taxes for those 2 years, right?
Minimum. Yep.
And the best explanation that I heard on this came from Tim Pool, right?
Yes.
Because I started watching Timcast, regular Timcast.
Me too.
You sold me on Timcast. And so
and I actually have been watching a little bit more of the IRL now.
I've
never made it through a full episode, but I've been watching more of it. Again.
So, and I made the mistake of not reading that article yet, right? The New York Times one about the taxes. But Tim Pool goes through essentially the entire article, right?
Which is why I watched Timcast.
Yes.
Because as he pontificates, he goes through the article.
Right. So when he's talking about it, they say later in the article how much money Donald Trump paid in taxes the 2 years prior to that.
Yeah.
And because I don't remember exactly what he said, so it's certainly go and watch that episode of Timcast. It's worth it because he explains it much better than I do. That they're like Donald Trump was being audited or something in those 2 years, and so they didn't know precisely how much he should be paying in taxes, so he just paid X amount of dollars, and it was like $20-something million and then like $40-something million for these 2 years, and it ends up that he's overpaying in these years with how much money he paid, and so they roll that money over the next 2 years, and so all he pays is the federal minimum when he files his taxes. So,
which just think about that as a regular person, federal minimum, $750 a year.
That's a lot of money.
Fuck them. Go ahead.
Yeah. Right. Which, I mean,
I get it.
It's not that much money, but still, like $750 every year.
Why?
Like, that's
why? For the pleasure of living under your fucking dictatorship?
The taxes thing I'm
highly upset about.
Getting, as the days go on.
Right.
More and more. I am
Wait till we actually make this company official. And I explained to you how we just get fucked all across the board. And Washington State ain't even that bad.
My favorite take on it actually came from our resident taxman, Larry Dixon, right? I was tweeting about it, and Larry Dixon
Love local celebrity Larry Dixon.
Tax avoidance is not tax evasion.
Amen.
Right?
It is
doing everything, and we're watching it, and Jordan...
You guys got on a Twitter thing, right, about that?
Yes.
Okay.
And
we got to retweet that or something tonight so people can
as
see
Jordan
that.
and I are watching it, she's, and Donald Trump is like, well, of course I want to fucking pay money. Like, that would be stupid. Like, I know, and so...
Who wants to give the federal government more
and
money?
I don't want to speak for you, but, like, she almost looked...
Do you want to speak for yourself?
That you don't have to. She almost looked like surprised that he was saying that. Right, that like that's his response to like is that correct?
Well,
come on,
you don't have.
I'm sorry, I just hate yelling at you. Yeah, no, more just. Where am I?
Hi. This is so funny. More just from like a PR perspective almost. Like that's just ammo. For that's just something that Biden could have turned around so quickly and so badly on him, you know? Like
if he was smart enough.
Who wants to fucking pay taxes? I'm not like looking forward to that. Last year I looked forward to it because we had a kid. So there was a big plus sign.
I'm trying to have a kid this year.
But no,
one of the reasons that's why.
Right? But nobody wants to pay taxes. Like
Nobody.
I get what he's saying, but I was surprised because that's like the person who's always trying to get someone to say like they wish they never had kids. You know what I'm saying? like no, it's such a little blessing, but I haven't slept in 4 days. Like there's
years.
just some things you shouldn't admit, but I get it.
Yeah.
Your guys' sleeping now is not even sleeping. You just have forgotten what sleeping is.
Well, especially
FYI.
like once he moved into his own room, he was fine. This is a small side, and then we'll go back. Just because it's been fucked up the last little while. It was fine once he was in his own room, but the last like 3 weeks, he's just been waking up and like doing shit. And she's the one that's fucking sleeping hard now, and so
Nice.
I've been waking up with it's awesome. So I still fucking wake
Well,
up at
I'm
4 in the
voting
morning.
For Jordan at this
and
point.
So
she had to carry that motherfucker.
He just
for 9
wakes
months.
up. It wakes up like twice in the middle of the night, and throws
Yeah.
all his shit out of his bed, and starts screaming.
I don't have my blanket.
Go into his room, put the bear in the blanket, all the binkies back in there. I can hang out with him for a minute, and then put him down. And it's happened
cool.
like twice, like every night. It fucking sucks.
I wonder if that's like a wake up and I don't know what's going on. I don't know where I am, so I'm just going to throw a tantrum. And now all of a sudden I know where I'm at, and I'm in my room, and nobody's here, and I don't have anything. Daddy, come help me.
Yeah. And he is totally like, he'll wake up and fucking say dada. You know what I'm saying? So she'll even be like, hey, he's
calling
he's
your
calling
name.
You. Like he wants you to go in there. Like he doesn't even want me.
Tell me that's not like a hidden competition. You don't get some sadistic like pleasure out of that at some point. It's like when he wakes up in the middle of the night, if he's going, Mama, you're like, oh, motherfucker, he's calling your name, sweetheart. Sorry.
It works both ways.
Now that he has a preference,
That's perfect.
Yeah, like I said,
feel like I was beating up on him for a second. I had to shift the focus of target.
you're good. It's just how it
It's
is
just kids, I
sometimes.
guess.
It's nice because there's some shit that he wants to do with you, and
Yeah.
there's other shit it's
literally,
not nice because that's what he wants you to do.
I'm talking a lot of baby stuff this episode, obviously, because this shit has become very, very real. Because, I was supposed to close my house.
Being
on
old,
the 30th or
motherfucker.
whatever, but like it's
Just
time,
kidding.
and I'm buying the house, and it's happening. It's just a matter of time at this point. So, baby's coming at some point, very, very soon. I asked for a reprieve for another 30 days, and that is the last 30-day reprieve I am okay with. And so I will be joining the club soon. So I'm trying to glean the lot right now.
Nice.
It's
Well,
become extra real.
Remember what I said about, not that I'm questioning, because I didn't question my own ability to procreate, but
Yeah.
I took maca root, right? And I'll send you the same kind that I took because it worked really
I got
well.
some maca root
and
around.
then,
Back when I was super into supplements.
took like 2 G's of vitamin C like every day.
Word.
Like 2 grams.
I do need to take care of myself.
all of it. And then you need to be
Yeah.
coming to the murder garage. You need to be
I'm
working
not
out.
going to commit to going to the murder garage because that's a long.
You need to be
fucking
working
night
out
for me.
is
Exactly.
what it needs to be.
If I will say this: if we get to a point where I can post up some Insta shit of me working out on murder garage nights, will that suffice for now? Just because.
Certainly.
last
As long
time
as
that
you're
Murder Garage
working
came
out.
around, that was, bro. That's a late ass night for me.
Yeah.
And to try to go back to work, that's tough gig that long. So I don't think I got home till like 10:30 last
As long
night.
as you're working out, bro.
Word. So I will do that.
Yeah.
Because she got me new shoes for working out, and they're really comfortable. She got me new shoes.
Yeah.
But I will be doing something to work out starting this week. So at Big Bird Offie on Instagram,
Word.
you will see it.
Word.
So actually,
Let's
and I
see
might
it.
have to multi-do it. So like I might put some on the Salted Streets Instagram. So
Do it.
at Salted Streets on Instagram.
That's the easiest way to do it.
And Facebook, it'll be
Yeah.
there because we multi-post everything. So Instagram makes it easy. Facebook makes it, shitty. But
I'm trying
we'll
to
do it.
trying
we'll
to
do it.
deadlift.
It's happening.
Trying to deadlift 400 by the end of October.
You are a fucking man. So another side note. Let's go deeper into the side notes real quick. Like I told you before, I think in the pre-show or something like that, general deer season is coming up here in about 2 weeks. So can I borrow him for a single overnight, one weekend? I got the backpack, I got the gear you need to survive and to do all these things. I want you to come out with me because if we do get a deer, I want you to help me pack it back.
Yeah. Yes.
That I need more human beings out there.
Yes.
And I don't want to just push it on one guy because dead animals weigh a fucking lot.
I'm down.
That's all I'm saying. And you'll
down.
You'll get more meat out of it. It'll be great.
I'm down.
So, okay.
I'll absolutely go.
We're gonna do on overnight here
and I'll bring
weeks.
a sidearm because you guys are crazy. I
sleep in the open too, which is fun.
And then Cam Haines the other day when they're on there and they're talking about John Dudley out and he's fucking hunting with his homeboy and they're like fucking pack of wolves and shit like that and they have to kill wolves with a fucking bow and arrow and homeboy only has like 5 shells in his pocket. Fuck that, bro. Fuck that.
Yeah, I bring more than 5 shells, thank God,
bro.
But
I might just fucking carry my goddamn AR because fuck that. I'm not playing that shit.
That's true. We'll put you in orange. You carry. And it would be good training.
Yeah, it might be good to
right?
just
sling that shit around yourself, and I'll feel like I have a bodyguard, which is super dope. Because when you're out there with the single action bolt action, that for whatever reason the magazines tend to fail after X amount of months. John and I both have the same fucking problem with this thing. I cannot reload my fucking magazine without sticking my finger in the chamber to push down on the front of the round so that the back end comes up enough to catch on the bolt
Colin
to catch it. Yeah, fuck that. I am not excited about that. There is a strongly worded letter to Tika to come because that within
that's no good.
No,
that's dangerous.
Within 50 rounds, my magazine is fucking shot at that point.
That's not good.
Exactly.
Was there a different company you can buy magazines from?
Yeah, there's a lot of that.
Yeah,
thank God.
Good. You should look for some because.
But I'm
that's
also gonna try to get a couple magazines out of Tika just in case.
Yeah, that's no good, bro.
So I would appreciate that. I'll have a nice semi-automatic rifle that's ready to scare some shit, put some shit down.
When is that? Do you know? It's okay.
So opening day, I believe, is the 17th of October. I want to say it depends on what species too, but for us, we'll be super local. So it'll just be a real quick overnight. You'll never be more than 5 hours away from.
No, and that's fine. I bought a holster, an outside the waistband holster.
Word.
And it'll be here in November. That's the only reason I'm asking.
Word.
So
all right, but we'll talk later
when
because we just started looking at where we're gonna go.
I got this.
So
I'm doing it.
I'm excited.
We're packing. We're going.
Yeah, because you'll be carrying that pack right there, and I got extra 10. I got everything you need. So it'll be
beautiful.
Good. Beautiful.
I'm excited. Me, you, and Chad.
Yeah, maybe. It might just be me, you, and John. Who knows?
Word. Let's do it,
take
bro.
You guys out.
I'm a big fan. I like it.
Go hang out in the woods. You can learn the life. You can shit in the woods for the first time probably ever. Have you ever shit in the woods?
Bro, absolutely.
Okay, that's good. Yeah, that's true. I trust that.
Yeah.
I understand that.
Yeah.
You guys do a lot of car
I was a
camping and
woods
stuff
kid,
too.
bro. I grew up in the woods.
But I mean, how many miles from the road?
Oh, I mean, deep in the creek, you know? I mean,
Okay.
it took 3 hours to get from my house
It's a good point.
through the creek to
I feel like we've discussed
to the
this
sound.
before.
Yeah. So, I mean, far enough that I'm like, bro, I can't
100%.
go back now.
Yeah.
Like,
respect.
it's time to go in the woods. So,
what do we I don't think we ever said it on the cast last time, but my last trip, 10 miles in. Right?
Yeah.
6 miles
bro.
in, 6 miles and a half. We go up, it's about a 3% grade. It's not too bad, whatever. It's a little hilly, but overall, generally 6% grade. Then you get to the edge of the mountain. And then you got to go up that mountain. You got to go up a mile.
Yeah, you also can't murder me like that. I don't want to do that.
I'm not doing that again.
Don't.
Without help.
I'll stop. I'll be like, I'm not doing it.
They'll be like, I'm fucking done.
I'm camping right here. If I see a deer, I'll call you. I don't know. I'm not, but.
And this sounds like, I don't care how many hardcore hunters may or may not be listening to this. Probably not that many. But big puss time. I don't know if what I struggled through was something that was really that existential. But for somebody that had never done that before, it was highly existential. And I probably pushed through multiple levels of boundaries that I thought I had, which was incredibly eye-opening.
And I'll tell you, I have to keep going.
When I got back from that, I felt as invincible as a human being as I've ever felt in my entire life. Because I had done something that I had convinced myself about 25 to 30 times throughout the day was completely impossible. And I was going to have to stop. And I was going to have to take an extra day to do this. But I convinced myself that I did not have to do that. I just kept going. I couldn't walk for a week and a half, but it's a thing.
Cool.
You really want to have some humility. But we're not. Well, I would never do that to people. Like for John, our first one, I didn't want to do something like that because he'd never do it again.
Yeah.
If that was the case, and I would never do that to you. So, I would never do
Yeah,
that to my
stand
worst
for
enemy.
work, bro.
By the way. So, yeah,
You're crazy.
I stand for work.
You're
but I'm
crazy.
really excited now because I know I can get you out there for a weekend.
Yes.
So yeah, we'll have to look at the cast schedule and then we'll find a weekend in between there.
Yes.
We'll look it up.
Okay.
So back to the debate.
Yeah. So the next thing they have talking about taxes, right, is
Taxes.
Donald Trump. Then after that, they start talking about the recovery process, right? Like for the country.
Yes.
You know how the what the fuck am I? Not recovery. What is that called?
The like as in like the checks and all that good stuff.
No, not that either. It's just like the coming back of the economy, the something. You know what I'm saying?
I'd say that the economic recovery from the recession and the depression and.
Is it reemergence?
No, it doesn't matter.
I feel like I've heard it commonly referred to as the recovery,
Maybe that
the
is
economic recovery, and
Yeah.
you're just
I'm not sure what I'm.
I get to that point sometimes where
That's
I'm like,
okay.
yeah, seems right.
Anyway, yeah. So they were talking about what they're going to do to recover the economy, right? And Joe Biden's plan, he's like, oh, well, my plan is an America First plan. I laid this out already. America First, America First, America First.
America First.
So I find it very, very interesting that pretty much this entire time, the last 4 years, like the entire time of Donald Trump's presidency, the Democratic Party has been saying that Donald Trump's America First policies are extremely xenophobic and racist.
Yeah.
And now we need to focus on America First. But that's not a problem now.
It was literally part of his campaign last year.
Right. And now that's exactly what Joe Biden said, right? His recovery plan is aggressively America First. Like so much that we're
buy back better.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not even going to buy shit from other countries, right? We're only buying American shit from America.
Yeah. So does that mean you're going to dissolve the TPP?
Right? That's not a problem. It
Nope.
doesn't, it's totally fine. I don't understand.
How incredibly nationalistic of you, Joe.
It's odd, right? And I'm not saying I'm against it, because certainly it's good to reinvest money in America, right? To bring jobs back to America. Right, but at the same time, this is when I started to notice Biden taking credit for things that happened in the Obama administration. Right? And I knew it was happening before, but I was like, you are really like,
he's like,
he was
I
saying
was number
shit.
2. I did that.
I was tasked with bringing back the economy, and this is what I did, right?
I did that.
What?
You didn't
like
do
I don't. What are you
Joe,
talking
did you forget the fundamental core of the Obama administration? You didn't build that.
Nothing.
We all did that. Oh, he must have forgotten, man. He must have forgotten. I don't know.
So I thought that's when I really started to notice that when he's talking about what he did to bring back the economy during the Obama administration, right? And so I'm just the amount of hypocrisy is like.
I was just going to say,
I hate to
so
just
you remember
keep
what we were
bringing
just
it back
talking
to
about
hypocrisy, but yeah,
and that's it. But that's the problem. It's a common core throughout the entirety of this debate.
Yeah,
on both sides.
On both sides.
On both sides.
On both sides. Yes.
You can't even say that anymore. You can't say that anymore because that's both sidesism. Fucking fence sitters.
This was around the same time that Donald Trump started to take digs about Hunter Biden. And I'm not sure exactly how that came up. It had to do something with TPP, America First, talking about Russia. I'm sure, something, right?
And the China.
Right. And so that's when he starts to take digs about Hunter Biden. And, China, and, Hunter Biden took all of this money and, excuse me, I'm sure it had to do with the money that he was taking from another country because they're talking about economic recovery.
Yeah.
And this would not be the first time that happens, right? It comes up again later towards the end of the debate.
It was kind of this revolving door situation where it would come and it would go, but then it would come back.
Right.
Including all the way to the end at this point. And this is maybe about halfway through it.
Yeah, about that.
Yeah.
And it's about this time they start to talk about the social unrest, right? Something we've talked about for the last several months.
Yes. This is the part that was the most infuriating to me.
Yes, because the first question, Chris Wallace continues forward with the good people on both sides, right? And this is
No, I can't wait to talk about
something
the Proud Boys.
that has been just shown a bajillion times over, you know what I'm saying? That that's only a portion of what he said, and that in that moment he disavowed white supremacist and racist, and then came back again.
Sure.
And I'm not gonna say that in this moment of the debate he didn't completely fucking flub that whole thing.
Oh yeah.
But in that time where he was talking about good people on both sides, at that very press conference, he disavowed racism and white supremacy.
Yep.
But that's still used by Joe Biden and by Chris Wallace. The fact that not only did he not fact check Joe Biden, he used it himself in a question to Donald Trump is fucking shocking to me, and is a reason as why I said Chris Wallace should probably not be on TV anymore.
Probably not, especially on Fox News.
It's-
You don't belong on that team, bro. I'm sorry. I get it.
Right.
I appreciate you being there.
Yeah.
But how are you still there?
Right. And so that's when they're, like I said, they're talking about the social unrest, you know, and so they're talking about what's happening in Portland and all these Democratic cities. Trump's talking about Democratic cities, and he...
Which, side note, I'm so glad that we're past 100 days, because at this point you could just say 100 plus days. You don't have to count
You don't
anymore.
have to track how many actual
Jesus,
days
yeah.
it was in Portland. And so I believe the question that they were asked is, like, what they would do about it, and then Joe Biden also got asked whether or not he had reached out to the Democratic cities to say anything, and he's like, oh, well, I'm not in elected office.
Yeah.
Well, you're also
yeah.
you're
I'm
running
opting
for
out.
president, though. You know what I'm saying?
opting
So
out of this one.
exactly.
I
Well,
don't
that's not my
technically have to
responsibility.
vote.
I don't
Yeah.
have. Yeah. And so
I'd love that one.
Donald Trump's response as to why the situation wouldn't be better handled by Joe Biden was first, well, look at what he did with the 1994 crime bill, and then look at all these Democratic cities and all this shit that's happening.
Which, by themselves, if you took time to flush out each and every one of them,
Yeah.
were murderous.
Yeah.
But he can't do that. Totally incapable.
And in those 2 minutes, he contradicts himself immediately, like
Oh, yeah.
instantly,
100%.
because he's trying to hit them for being hit Joe Biden for being too aggressive on crime, and he called black people super predators, over
predators.
and over, super predators.
Yeah.
But then
Just
also,
coming out, Mike Tyson. Bam,
yeah,
bam,
but then
bam,
also,
bam, bam,
you guys
bam,
are
bam,
pussies, and that's why all this stuff is happening. And if you guys would just let us go in, then this would be no problem at all.
Yeah.
I think that's very interesting.
And substantively, not incorrect, just incredible. Like, you couldn't find a more poor way to deliver that. You could not find a more poor way to do it. Technically, you're not wrong. Yeah, if Ted Wheeler, the mayor of Portland, was that pleaded to the governor, who I can't remember the name of the governor, but if he would plead to the governor of Oregon, to be like, please let the feds come in here and handle this, because I don't want to take the political heat. I don't want to do this. I don't want to have my local PD or your state troopers handle this. Let's let the feds take care of this. We can point the finger at him. He's bad. He comes. There was a completely political way that he could have done that to stop the unrest, which really pisses people off. But people like me who understand that you can stop the violence and the destruction of property and the riotous shit that's going on. You're allowing your citizens to gain felonies at this point, to become felons, because you are unwilling to take this political move to actually stop what's going on.
Yeah.
You could do that and still be politically safe. You can have enough political cover to plead to the governor, to plead to Trump, and to have the feds come in. The media will run cover on you. It doesn't matter. The feds will always be the bad guy, but you could stop it from happening. And they haven't done that.
The same
so
way
he's not substantively wrong.
Yeah.
But he is not the person to try to articulate that.
Right.
And so it just comes out, like it comes out in the end, like him shooting himself in the foot. Biden doesn't look any worse by his attack. But like, oh yeah, these Democratic run city, blah blah blah. Like, that's not substantively wrong, but in this setting, you did not deliver that answer to that point. Nobody's talking about that.
Right.
Obviously, right?
Well, and then Joe Biden's response to that is they start talking about how crime went down, or violent crime went down during the Obama administration, and it's gone up, you know what I'm saying, during Donald Trump administration in the last 4 months. And I cannot avow, or I can't answer for what happened in the first 3 years of the Donald Trump administration, because I don't honestly know. But certainly this fourth year of the Donald Trump administration, I do not think that you can really put the increase on violent crime on Donald Trump. I don't think so. Certainly in the last few months, I would not put that on Donald Trump.
But why? Because I know that's going to be a pushback.
Why would I not put that on Donald Trump?
Because he is the most divisive person. His language is so, it's so divisive. It's fomenting the violence, Donovan.
Yeah.
Come on. How can you not think that Trump is the problem here?
I would say...
I've just been approached frequently about that.
And I would say in regards to the increase in violent crime in larger cities, I would say that we've seen... New York is a really good example, right?
Chicago is a good one.
Murders that we've seen. I use New York because with the amount of murders that we've seen go up, violent crime go up in the last few months, coincides directly with them choosing to remove the task force on the street, whose job it was primarily to get illegal guns off of the street.
That's about as crystal clear a situation as you can do. Yeah. The plainclothes division of the NYPD.
We saw that in Seattle and all these other places where we saw things happening, even just looting and shit like that, right? And the police are literally standing there watching it happen. We saw that. We saw it here in the Chaz, where the Chaz Chop, where people were allowed to establish a quote-unquote autonomous zone within Capitol Hill. People were murdered and somebody was raped before they decided that, okay, this can't happen anymore, right?
And not only that, like, the reason we call it the Chaz Chop, and we kind of joke about the Chaz Chop, is because initially it was called the Capitol Hill Autonomous Zone.
Yes.
But once they discovered, and once the city council discovered that if they call it an autonomous zone, that is technically a portion of individuals who are seceding from the United States, which is technically a declaration of war, and now federal troops can get involved.
Right.
Not just federal agents and officers, but federal troops can get involved at that point. All of a sudden, they changed their name to the CHOP, the Occupied Protest, the Capitol Hill Occupied Protest. And that is not discussed. Just wanted to add that caveat.
Yes. Well, and it's extremely important.
Because it's important.
Because that lends itself to Donald Trump's argument, right? That he continued to push on. That in many of these cities, once I threatened to send in federal agents, just as like in Portland, when I sent in federal agents and all of this shit happened and I started scooping people up off the streets.
Or deputizing state troopers. Well, state troopers are deputized as federal marshals when needed or something. But he threatened to do that to the local Portland PD.
In other places, when he threatened to bring in the National Guard is when shit stopped, right?
Yeah.
And when it's the same, like you just said in Seattle, when he threatened to send in federal agents like they were seeing in Portland, they immediately changed their name to the Occupied Protest instead of the Autonomous Zone, right?
And real quick.
The fact that
that's just because they're super
that
smart
was
protesters.
Allowed to happen, and Donald Trump, the federal government, spoke out against it the entire time because Kayleigh McEnany, the press secretary,
that's my future ex-wife,
she was, every day out there hitting hard against the leadership of Seattle, Jenny Durkin, and
she is a fucking machine.
She's savage, bro.
Savage. She's really good at her job.
And so because
she's not bad on
they were out there speaking against it every day, and Jenny Durkin and the police department are like just letting it happen and doing whatever, and it takes people being shot and murdered and raped until they stop it. It's pretty hard to argue.
Underage kids being brutally murdered in vehicles for joyriding. I think we talked about that, right?
Yeah.
I forget how many rounds were unloaded into this kid and then shot execution style afterwards. But that's
so
where it kind of ended at that point.
I just have a hard time, and I'm not saying that, I don't know, in a lot of cases it doesn't make it better, because Donald Trump is, like you said, extremely divisive. Divisive to the point that we've seen people standing outside of Walter Reed Hospital protesting his existence. I don't know know what they're there for. I'm not sure. Like I saw one video, the woman said, we're just protesting everything that he stands for.
Oh yeah, he's bad. Orange man.
And then that they didn't care how he felt. You know what I'm saying?
The amount of, just say, I don't want to say they're not calls for violence or anything, but the kind of like well wishes on death to the president that I've seen over Twitter over the last just 24 hours, pretty severe.
Yeah.
Rather disgusting when you think about it, because even like Joe Biden knows better. Joe Biden's campaign or whoever's running his Twitter knows better than to wish bad or wish ill on a president of the United States that has a disease which might kill him.
Yeah.
Right. Even he was like, "Oh yeah, love and prayers. Like I pray for the president of the United States. I pray for them. Good on him." There was a lot. We talk a lot of shit on her. Rachel Maddow, same thing. She was like, "Hey, I'm down. Just I hope he's all right. That's all I hope he comes out of this, because it's disgusting that if you are excited about the president of the United States getting COVID, like I can understand where that comes from." But know that if you have that feeling, you're a disgusting human being who needs to get it through your head that, that is a human life that you are wishing ill upon.
Right.
Just think about that for a second. You're wanting somebody to die. So just, take that with a grain of salt. But it doesn't surprise me that this is happening, and it's really sad to say. But, I mean, good on Joe Biden, I guess, at this point for being for actually taking that Democratic stance and being better than the other side. That's the first time I've seen that. Joe Biden would be like, "Yeah, I wish him well." I mean, Trump would be like, "Yeah, I wish him well." Just like Ghislaine Maxwell. I wish him well.
I wish him well. At this time when they were talking about the social unrest and what was happening in the cities, right, Joe Biden later made the argument that everything would have been better if Donald Trump would have just stayed out of the way, right? Which, as we just talked about, I think is a pretty hard argument to make.
Because like as soon as he was involved, it was over.
Yeah, and then Joe Biden kind of got pressed on defund the police, right? And he said that he didn't like
as pressed as Chris Wallace would press anybody.
Right.
On this
and I was surprised to hear Joe Biden make like the bad apple argument, right? That he was like,
that was surprising.
That's been spoken against vehemently by the defund the police crowd. I mean, since the very beginning,
that was
if it's just a few bad apples, then fucking whatever, So
that was a hard political move, which I will say that I respect that he did, because I don't know if Kamala Harris, if she was running for president, I don't know if she would have gone that far, but like that is good, because at the end of the day, we all know, like I have problem with cops, just like you got problem with cops and, all this stuff. We saw Officer Brian last night, BTW said hi. And
sup, Officer Brian.
That's right. But we all know that not all cops are bad, and the police force in general is a good thing. We like having them around because they allow us to live our life safely. And we all have lots of problems with their interference with our lives and our sometimes breaking of rights and blah blah blah, and we understand that every person shot by the cops and killed by the cops every year, which there are a lot of that are completely and utterly unjustified, or we have systemic laws in place that allow them to do that kind of thing and be okay. We understand that there are problems with that, and which is why we need police reform. But at the end of the day, it's okay for Joe Biden to say that, like, law enforcement's good and we don't necessarily need to get rid of them altogether.
Yes, right, and that's what he said, is that
and so he's been getting a lot of
thought
pushback
that they should be accompanied by people that could help them assist in a lot of other circumstances, which
I don't argue either.
No,
there's a lot of like the shit. What was his name? The drunk guy in the drive-thru at the Wendy's that ended up getting killed.
Yes,
like that. There's a lot of ways that could have gone a lot of different if we had different levers to pull.
We've talked about this a couple of different times, that
there's so many situations like that.
The worst part about the idea or the message of defunding the police is just that. It's just the words defunding the police, right? Is that's because anybody who even is in favor of that, once they're pressed on it, like, well, that's not really what it means. It really means this and this and this, right? And it's like, if that's not what it means, then you should be using different words, right? And
words matter, as I think the last podcast could probably illustrate pretty well.
And it's because people who don't automatically agree with that are going to be instantly turned away at the idea of defunding the police, and they're not going to want to take the time to hear what that actually means, So it's a hard sell for people who already don't agree with you, and if it's the counterpoint is like, oh well, it's really hard, to explain this whole idea. It's just easier to just say defund the police, but that doesn't.
It's so disingenuous.
It's not a winning idea, right?
It's a bad. it's a bad headline.
But when you're Joe
bad
Biden,
headline.
you can say, I don't agree with defunding the police, but I do agree with more training, with different individuals responding to different circumstances, because it doesn't always need to be a police officer. That's something that I think that, like, I'm going to say 90% of America is going to agree with, right?
Anybody
If
that's
you're-
willing to actually sit down and think about
Right,
it
because
would
you're not
probably
talking about,
agree with
not
that.
talking about taking money away. You're talking about
Yeah.
more money for more training and for
Yeah.
people to be able to better handle circumstances that,
If it resulted in less quote-unquote cops,
yeah.
okay. But what we're talking about here is a fundamental reform of our entire thinking about how we do this aspect of policing. A lot of it would stay relatively similar to the way it is. But especially when you're talking low-level crimes and stuff like that these cops have to deal with, which they're trained to kind of deal with more higher tension situations almost in a way than the everyday like domestic disturbance or the drunk driver and this and that. I mean, there's so many other ways that we could look out for our fellow citizens by having a different system in place to handle that kind of stuff where like you are being a danger to other citizens in our society, and that is not okay.
Yeah.
And so we need to teach you a lesson. But that doesn't necessarily mean that like we need to do the old standard of throw them in a cage and fine them a bunch of money or something like that. I mean, like there's other ways we could approach that situation. We should be talking about that, not just we should not be talking about defunding the police.
Yeah.
It just seems like a fundamentally disingenuous place to start. You know, it's not because nobody wants to just defund the police and let things just kind of fall how they are. I mean, maybe Michael Malice.
Few people want to completely abolish the police.
Real life, like anarcho-capitalists want something like
Chelsea
that.
Manning.
And they don't even really want that. They just want a privatized security force. Which
when Chelsea Manning was running for representative of wherever she was running from.
Pause button. What?
Yeah.
Of
I don't remember where.
California?
Somewhere here, obviously, but yeah, I don't remember where. One of her stances was to abolish the police, was to completely abolish it. I remember that.
Good for her. I'm glad she got drummed out by the system.
The final question I think on this particular topic was Joe Biden got asked if he felt that there was a separate but unequal system of justice for minorities in America. Yep. And I don't remember exactly what his response. He said yes, and then elaborated. I don't remember exactly what his response was. But I believe that Breonna Taylor was brought up and used as an example. And I don't think that in questions like this I'm ever going to be satisfied with people's response, right?
There's not enough time.
I'm just extremely frustrated that it is not turned into a discussion of people's constitutional rights. Do you know what I'm saying? Many of these things, as we've seen, and I'm not trying to deep dive into Breonna Taylor or anything because I don't want to do that, but these things we've seen are not as simple as they all appear to be, right? And for every instance...
This is why Joe Biden tweeting that picture of Kyle Rittenhouse out, labeling him as a white supremacist, was wrong and is now deleted.
And every instance of a minority or somebody being murdered by the police can be countered with an example of a white person being murdered by the police, right? This shit happens all the time. And I'm not trying to be like, it's not an issue. We talked about that last week with John, right? That's not my argument. My
point is that it is an issue.
Right. My point is that the larger issue, and again, not to discredit or belittle anything else, but the larger issue is I don't remember exactly what word I want to use, the violation of people's constitutional rights and
the infringement,
and it's such a winning argument for Joe Biden to address it that way for everybody, right? To even hit it in the beginning
because
we do have problems of racial inequality in this country. And I'm also concerned of, a police force, somebody, however he wants to frame it, violating people's constitutional rights regardless of what color they are, because our Constitution and the founding documents and the subsequent amendments have showed us and exemplified for us and solidified that everybody is equal regardless of the color of their skin.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter what color you are. If a police force or any body of this government is violating your constitutional rights, we need to stop that.
Yes.
Right?
And that is not to take away from the, God, I don't want to say systemic, but there are obviously a great many communities in this country that are not starting out in the same place. They're not starting at the same level of equality that we want everybody.
Opportunity.
Exactly. Because of the shitty roll of the dice that they were given, and where their parents were at, and how their parents were forced, may or may not have been forced into that situation, blah blah blah. But
different
regardless,
governmental decisions up until this point,
and regardless of how we got there or why, there are a lot of people that are born in this country that are not born into an equal opportunity that a lot of us are, and that is not due to the way that our laws are structured necessarily, which is part of the problem here, because there is some fundamental truth to the fact that like the fact that BLM exists, Black Lives Matter movement and stuff, there's a reason that it exists,
right?
Because there's a lot of hoods in this country that are super shitty, and there's a lot of African Americans that grow up in that,
right?
And that are not, a person grown up in Compton is not, they do not have the same opportunities as a person grown up in fucking Kingston,
right?
Period. White or black at that point. It doesn't matter where you're at. It's just where you're born. And that is a problem. And I don't know how to fix that, but there's a way to fix it. We can figure it out.
Yeah.
But that does not give credence to the argument that like we should defund the police.
Right.
Right.
And
that is not the nature. That just because that does exist and that is a problem, it doesn't mean it's because the police force or law enforcement is systemically racist.
Yeah.
Right.
And
even though the numbers might indicate that, depending on how you interpret the numbers.
And I think my point in this particular case comes from a very personal place, that like I'm looking for somebody who's going to deliver me something that I personally can hang on to. You know what I'm saying? And I am like so focused on base constitutional like rights, and the fact that that is not the focus of anybody's discussion is like very frustrating to me. Well, because it looks, anybody vying for big office like this, like in these debates, you know what I'm saying, that like it's the focus is not,
that's true, it's not.
It's not in the right place, and it's not going to solve the problem that they're talking about by looking at it the wrong way. And it's frustrating because
you're not going to fix it by throwing in a constitutional amendment. That's not how it's going to get fixed. There is problems. I mean, I think it's plain to see.
I mean, trying to look at it through the lens of race. It's taking away from the issue that they're raising of people's rights being violated. To then look at that through the lens of race is taking away from that whole discussion. It's taking away from that progress. And if he would have taken a moment to do what he has to do for the party, right? Like I said, and be like, absolutely, there's, like I said, racial issues in this country, whatever he has to say, right? And then afterwards to appeal to everybody and say, but there are also issues that we're seeing here through the murder of Duncan Lemp and Breonna Taylor, that this is an issue for everybody, and that these, even use it as a bridge into it, that these systemic, if that's what he wants to say, right, these systemic racial issues are leading into problems for everybody, right? Yeah. That's not like,
they're the canary in the coal mine, perhaps.
And I don't think that's too far of a jump for him to make and still be on board with the Democratic narrative that he has to keep up with, right? And I'm personally losing faith in, not that I had it in these two individuals to begin with, but the people that are raising to these ranks, that the idea of base constitutional protections are so far in the back of your mind that it can't even be addressed. Now it can't even be brought up.
And that is because race, in whatever percentage of the aspect is that you want to assign to it, it is an aspect. And so it takes over due to the current societal position, wherever we're at with this thing, because the left has put in the idea that race is everything into everybody's mind. And we've all, whether we like it or not, we've all adopted that because we're all talking about it, right? Regardless of whether or not race is involved at some point, we are still failing to address the root fundamental cause, which is the constitutional infringement. It's not necessarily going to solve the racial aspect of it because there is, I can't shake the idea that there's still something wrong, something that we have not addressed when it comes to race.
And
right?
I'm not saying that it
but
will,
it's just
right?
Not that's not where you solve that problem.
Right. I'm not saying that it will solve the problem with race because it does exist, but trying to solve the problem with race will not solve the problem with the constitutional crisis.
And that's not to take away from the idea that we do need to address the race issue. And because it's been made an issue. So it obviously is an issue somewhere. But we need to address it. But there's other things that we want to address with that because what the catalyst to what is bringing this to the fore is the constitutional problem.
And my concern is that if that constitutional issue goes for too long, metaphorically, if the cancer of that issue allows to sit for too long, the issue of race won't matter anymore. It won't matter. It will be too far gone for that to even matter. It will not exist anymore because we will all be fucking slaves to the government, to the police, government, federal machine, whatever. You know what I'm saying? We will all not have rights. We will all not have rights. Yep. So
we will still have rights, but we will have fundamentally shifted from a negative rights society to a positive rights society where our government no longer exists to protect our rights. Our government exists to give us rights. That is the fundamental danger with this discussion. This is why everybody gets so heated about it, is because it's addressing some really core values that nobody is willing to address on the surface anymore because we're having this discussion through race, through police brutality. We're having all these discussions through different catalysts that are not speaking to the actual problem. It would be much simpler if everybody was on the same page and we could dial it all back.
But I feel like if Joe Biden was to make an argument of the police acting acting unconstitutionally, like even Chad Offenbacher would be able to get down on it. Would have to give Joe Biden 1 point. You know what I'm saying? Because even as much as I know Chad hates Joe Biden, like probably to his core, if he were to hear Joe Biden say the police have been warped into a body that is violating your constitutional rights and it's funded through your tax dollars, what the fuck is Chad gonna say other than straight up? Right? He has no choice but to give that point to Joe Biden, and I don't understand why that's like such a that doesn't seem like a radical argument to make. That doesn't, and it's not counter to even the narrative that the Democrats have to continue to push, you know? And the fact that idea, I don't know. I don't want to continue to repeat myself. I'm not even certain that it's making total sense, but
my bad.
It's fine.
Tiny little bladder these days.
So, let's see. That's about the violent crime. Okay, and so this is when they started to talk about, like, the Proud Boys, right? This is when the moment happened with the Proud Boys where, you know, they asked Trump to denounce racism, and I'm not going to... It was very
weird, the question itself.
It was very weird. It was super weird, and then everybody was talking at the same time, and he asked, like, who do you want me to... I have 133. I can pull it up on my YouTube app on my phone. Excuse me.
The actual question?
Yes.
Oh, perfect.
His answer to it, yeah.
Because it was this is one of those Trump answers, unfortunately, that you have to go back to the transcript to argue the validity of what he said.
Because I'm not defending it, because he certainly could have,
because it was so poorly described. There you go. Oh, we're almost there.
This is the...
What's he do?
That's like the answer to it
This
afterwards.
is the end of the other one.
Wait, no, you've been talking back and forth.
Okay.
I'm asking you.
I would love to end it.
sir.
I would love to end it, and
You
we
know, if
would
you want to
very-
switch seats,
We would very quickly.
We could do that, but
I'd
I'm
send
no.
in the National Guard. It would be over. There'd be no problem.
Okay.
But they don't want to accept the National Guard.
You have repeatedly criticized the vice president for not specifically calling out Antifa and other left-wing
That's right.
extremist groups. But are you willing tonight to condemn white supremacists and militia groups to say that they need to stand
That shit
down
really
and
pissed
not
me off.
add to the violence in a number of these cities, as we saw in Kenosha and as we've seen in Portland?
We did not see that in
You're willing
Kenosha.
to do that,
Specifically,
but
do it.
I
Go
would
ahead,
say
sir.
I would say almost everything I see is from the left
Which is
wing,
not wrong.
not from the right wing.
So what are you saying?
I'm willing to do anything. I want to see peace.
then
Willing
do
to
it,
do
sir.
anything.
Say it. Do it. Say it. You want to call him? What do you want to call him? Give me a name. Give me a
White
name. Go ahead.
supremacists
What
and
would
white
you like me to condemn?
white supremacists and right
Proud
militia.
Boys, stand
Biden,
back
the
and
Proud
stand
Boys.
by. But I'll tell you what. Somebody's got to do something about Antifa and the left, because this is not a right-wing problem. This is a left-wing. This is a left-wing problem.
White supremacists. Antifa's an idea, not an organization.
Oh, you got it.
Which-
Antifa's an idea, not an organization, Joe.
Just one of the most uninformed things I've ever heard, right?
Because this is the
but
problem. They are not on the level to understand who the Proud Boys are and who the fuck Antifa is.
Right.
None of these people understand what it is that they're talking about at this point.
So
Again,
either
disqualifies
way,
both of
right,
them.
right. The answer that Trump had to this, the initial question of like disavowing racism and white supremacy, it's
And right-wing militias, apparently.
and right-wing militias. I'm not defending his answer because it was obviously fucking terrible, right?
Any
In my
functional adult should be able to be like,
personal-
yeah, no. Hard, yeah, these people are terrible.
Yeah, in my personal opinion, right, it sounds like he's starting to form an answer that will be a disavowing of of whatever they're asking.
Just give him time.
And-
He'll roll
and
up
then
to it. It's not going to be in the first sentence.
because of, and I don't want to like talk shit on the president, but like his monkey brain activates and like two people talking to him at the same time.
Because he is not a person. He is an ego.
He throws his middle fingers up and says, "Fuck you guys, Proud Boys, fucking whatever. I don't give a shit. Fuck you guys." So I'm not defending it because there's no reason that
There
a
is
grown
no
man
defense
that's
of it.
70 whatever years old was not able to say again, because he's done it in the past, right? We've talked
Kayleigh
about it. It's
McEnany has
happened in
gone
the
over it.
past. But there's no reason that he could not do exactly what was expected and say, of course I disavow white supremacy and racism. Of course I do. It has no place in America, no place in my heart, no place in my administration, no place anywhere, right? No reason he couldn't say that.
Yeah, you, by saying that right now, that was 1,000% better than what he said.
There's no reason, right? I don't know what the fuck. I don't know. I can't defend it. I have no idea why he wasn't able to do it. I don't.
It's because he,
Do I
at this
think
point, after 4 years, if that answer is not baked into the cake of who Trump is as a human being, because again, like we discussed earlier, he's barely a person. He has a serious mental health issue. He is only ego, and that's the only thing he's cared about. It's the same reason why he thinks his daughter's attractive, right? It's because he is only an ego. This is where all of his defects come from, because he is not a human being person, because he is mostly ego. That is an egotistical
And you don't
attack.
think that it's because he's a white supremacist
No.
or a racist or because he wants the Proud Boys to beat the shit out of Antifa.
He doesn't know
or
who the
like,
Proud Boys are. And we know that, right?
Okay.
And neither does Joe Biden. Nobody
And
knows who the Proud Boys are, except for the Proud Boys are led by a Latino Cuban, like an Afro-Cuban. I believe he's Afro-Cuban. He might not be. He might just be Cuban. But they're led by a Cuban guy, like who is not fair-skinned. We'll say that much. They are not. Me and you understand who the Proud Boys are, right? They're this weird offshoot of this essentially troll group that Gavin McInnes
staunchly
started.
conservative,
Yes.
anti-Antifa, really.
They're like the Tea Party times 4 or 5.
And they're willing to beat the shit out of people who look like Antifa.
It's part of what they do,
Yeah.
right? They are agitators. They are there to protect,
They're assholes.
they're assholes, period, right? They are instigators and they are agitators.
No
but-
better than Antifa.
But they are not a white supremacist group. Are there white supremacists within the Proud Boys?
Certainly.
Certainly,
I'm
I'm sure there are.
Yes.
It's
But-
funny thing that
Loud and proud, girlfriend. Loud and proud.
funny thing that I opened Google and searched who are the leaders of Proud Boys and all of that, and it gave me
Enrique
in
Tarrio.
Wikipedia, it says the Proud Boys are a far-right neo-fascist and
Whew.
only organization with ties to white supremacists.
So now if you Wikipedia Enrico Tarrio, Tarrio, it'll explain to you who he is and that the fact that he is the current leader of the Proud Boys.
Yeah.
And then you look at his picture and go, oh, okay, I get it. They're not white supremacists. I got it.
Yeah.
But if you search Proud Boys on Wikipedia, you'll get that answer.
And so certainly
Yes.
because of what we just said, you could say that they have ties to white supremacy, but you can't.
It's
and
disingenuous.
I'm
though.
not trying to defend the Proud Boys, right? But it's
don't want to,
disingenuous, yeah, because you can say that. I mean, we've seen the same type of rhetoric be used against Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, Dave Rubin, Joe Rogan. They're right wing adjacent. Like that's the type of shit that's like. I mean, I guess that they hold conservative views, but Ben Shapiro's Jewish, and it's like Orthodox Jew, like very, very, very Jewish.
Oh, yeah. Number one target of white.
I don't think that he's a Nazi.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
No,
that
number
type
one
of
target
shit.
of anti-Semitism in 2016.
Yeah.
And he's not afraid of telling you that. I'm pretty
And
sure every
talks
episode
about
he
it all the
reminds
time.
me.
Yeah, and so
I mean, I probably would too if I was that guy. Not to be,
And then
No
for
shade.
Joe Biden to immediately answer that with Antifa is an idea, not an organization. Okay, so
Jerry Nadler.
not only are there organized groups for Antifa, like Rose City Antifa, like shit like this, right? There are groups like that all over the place. During the debate, Andy No posted a list of known Antifa groups, actual active groups, organizations. Steven Crowder has infiltrated numerous, I think 2 different Antifa groups. And then Project Veritas has done undercover reporting into multiple Antifa
but Project
groups.
Veritas is. We'll get into that later, I think.
Yeah, and so it is deeply concerning to me that people in such high positions are, first of all, talking about shit that they don't know about, right? But also saying things that are so not true and continuing to distort the perception of the general public towards these extremely dangerous groups, Antifa and Proud Boys alike.
And that
right?
just indicates that, again, they are so disconnected, like you said earlier, from the everyday culture that they have no concept of who these people actually are.
Right.
And only people like me and you, like Tim Pool, like Andy No, like Dave Rubin, like people that actually live.
Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder.
Yeah, I'm like all these people. They know. Ben Shapiro, I'm starting to have more and more of a problem with, because I'm seeing he's becoming more and more disconnected, and more towing a party line versus anything else.
I don't
and
listen to him as often. Yeah,
I get it, but it is. Yeah, I'm just saying I'm very frustrated with him lately. Like Philip DeFranco. Oh fuck, dude. Watch his episode on the debate, and you go, oh, I get it, man. Like you drank the Kool-Aid.
Yeah,
I get it. You're on it. He was describing it. The other, I got so fucking pissed.
Even
he was describing it as this vote coming up as it's not a vote between like Trump and Biden, or no, it's a vote for Trump against democracy.
Oh,
I was
my
like,
God.
no, dude, no, none of that is right. None of that is right.
Yeah,
I mean, I can see, Trump against vote or democracy. I mean, against Trump or democracy, in a very nuanced, very kind of niche way. That might be a correct statement, because what Joe Biden's going to usher in will become essentially a pure democracy if he had his way. But that's not.
It's not what he meant.
No.
Yeah.
That, and he also. I would suggest you watch it if you haven't. I'd be curious your take on it, because it's not that long. It's just his first take on the debate.
Yeah.
And he went into it with this. I'd be curious where he found this too. But it was a specific tactic. There's a name for the tactic that Trump used during the debate, which is essentially the Mike Tyson attack, don't come off, just keep coming like a fucking freight train.
Yeah.
There's a name for that. I forget what it is, but I just don't think there was no pre-calculation towards what Trump was doing at that point. And to assign him any any kind of retrospective, strategy is, I think, giving him too much credit.
Yes.
But I would highly recommend people check that out. But it's, again, how I think so many people now are just becoming so, I want to say disenfranchised. I wrote a whole thing the other day about franchisement or disillusioned, because I've become disillusioned with politics. That's a whole nother side. But like it's to get all the way back to the debate and all that stuff, because I love to just go like 3 rails over. It's why Trump, again, is the worst avatar to speak against these ideas. When Biden gets up there and says, Antifa is just an idea. Motherfucker, no, it's not. There's legitimate groups, and it goes all the way over to post-World War II Europe. Like, Antifa, it started in Europe.
Yeah.
All right, and it's over here now, and what it started at, it's not here. There's a whole history behind it, and you should fucking look into it, because it's really important, and it's very, very interesting.
Well,
first of all, because it's not a
when-
bad concept.
Especially when Christopher Wray is saying that it's like, you know what I'm saying, he's able to quote his own FBI director, and because there isn't consistent understanding across the different intelligence organizations, because Mike Pompeo, who used to be the CIA director, and I haven't heard Gina Haspel talk about it, but I'm sure that she's on the same tilt that Mike Pompeo is.
Right, she's all about murking people.
Yeah, I'm sure that she's on the...
I'm sorry, Gina Haspel is scary. She's terrifying.
Gina Haspel,
because she's very quiet,
babe,
and very dangerous.
Gina Haspel was allegedly, for legal protection,
because the CIA will come after you.
Allegedly, the head of a black site where they tortured the fuck out of people. Like tortured the fuck out of people. She was part of like the original, what they called the enhanced interrogation program, and there were videos of enhanced interrogations that happened at the black site that she directed, and they disappeared. And there may or may not have been email communications about how it would be beneficial for the videotapes to not exist anymore.
Oh, yeah.
And, maybe what should be done with them. And now she's the director of the CIA. So I'm pretty certain that Gina Haspel's on the same tilt as Mike Pompeo as far as...
She's this very scary person. You look into her. During her confirmation, we talked about
a lot about Gina Haspel.
And terrifying. Say that one more time. Do we not say something?
Yeah, but he's like murking is like what he is. A merkin is a pubic hair wig.
A merkin.
That's what,
yes. But she's merc apostrophe N.
This isn't a comedy podcast, baby. This is serious. It's not why we're here.
But vagina wigs.
But vagina wigs. Yes. Especially, I will say, when I discovered what a merkin was, I was fascinated. And I Googled a lot. And then I immediately never Googled that ever again.
That type of shit.
I don't want to relive that experience.
Yeah, so I'm sure that Gina Haspel's on the same tilt as Mike Pompeo as far as what Antifa really is, right?
Yes.
I don't understand why there isn't consistency in the FBI of that understanding.
Did you listen to the Comey testimony recently?
No.
Oh, fuck, bud. Get some homework for you.
Oh my God.
That is real interesting, because they're talking about Crossfire Hurricane and blah, 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 and it just shows Comey's ineptitude as
Did you see
a head of the FBI and how he had no idea what was going on over it.
Showtime has been making some super spicy content lately.
Showtime.
Showtime.
I think I have a subscription for that on
One
Amazon.
of them is about Comey. Right? It's like it's about him and like all the shit happening like before the election and whatnot, and
the reason why why we're having this conversation, why Hillary Clinton isn't president right now. James Comey.
The meetings between him and Donald Trump, and like all the nefarious things that Donald Trump did. Like this whole thing is about like essentially painting James Comey as like a hero.
Oh yeah.
And
hero of the left.
Yes.
Cost Hillary Clinton the election.
And then there's something else they're making too. I don't remember. That's another like Trump type of thing. I'm shocked. I'm really surprised.
I gotta check it out. Showtime?
Okay. Showtime, yeah. Excuse me. I've just seen the commercials for it. I don't have Showtime. I saw the ads for it on YouTube. It's craziness.
Can I do a quick side?
What?
On YouTube, right?
Yes.
I keep getting these advertisements for trying to get me to join YouTube Red, the whole pay for YouTube thing. And there's a movie on there about Jordan Peterson. And it's only available, I think, that I've been able to find so far. I think it's called Rising or something like that, about Jordan Peterson. And there's a bunch of other like hardcore conservative movies and documentaries that I've seen advertised to me now on YouTube for YouTube Red, trying to get me to go to YouTube Red. Have you seen any of those? Have you seen? Let me see if I can go to YouTube real quick and see if it'll come up in my advertisements.
But while you're looking for that, I'll tell
yes.
you, I did watch.
Tell me the story, baby.
A YouTube documentary done by The Blaze TV.
Oh yeah.
That was called Riding the Dragon.
And Steven Crowder's part of The Blaze now.
Yes.
I've been.
So is Dave Rubin.
Re-listening to. Of course, Dave is. Good for Dave. He needs help.
Yes.
Dave he couldn't figure out a lane to go to.
And so it is a documentary called Riding the Dragon. And it is about Joe Biden, Hunter Biden, and their financial ties to China and Russia. It's like a 45-minute. I'm serious. I watched it. You should watch it. There you go. I can't attest to whether
The Rise of Jordan Peterson documentary 2019. It's been advertised to me all this time, but I need to be YouTube Red so I can get it. It's inappropriate for some viewers, FYI.
Interesting.
Yeah. I've been all over following JBP since his situation, and I just keep waiting for him to come back. I don't know if he's ever going to come back.
I'm sure he will. He'll be back.
Did you watch that Michaela Peterson interview with her dad?
She was sad, bro.
It was painful. I cried.
She was sad.
I cried. I'm not gonna lie. I cried.
I've seen a lot of people shit on Jordan Peterson
for no fucking reason because they're ignorant fucks.
Yeah,
that man is one of the greatest human beings to ever walk the planet in our contemporary world. 100%.
John added me to this group on Facebook that's like...
John's all about adding people to groups.
Yes, I know. And I don't remember which one it was, but you were like asking for book recommendations and someone recommended Jordan Peterson. There's all these people in the comments, like, this is some basic thinking. Like, this isn't enlightened at all. It's fucking blah, blah, blah. It's
Read
not even
motherfucker.
Like... And I'm like, it doesn't... He's not claiming to be breaking new psychological ground. He wrote a book to help people get their shit together. Yeah. He's not saying that he's coming up with a bunch of shit that nobody has ever fucking said before. No. That's why he's fucking quoting the Bible and all that. He's quoting the Bible the entire time. Like
Nietzsche.
He's talking about how old these ideas are, and that's why they're so important, right? Yeah. And even if you're not talking about the 12 Rules of Life, I mean, Maps of Meaning, all these other lectures that he's done are extremely useful for people who need them.
I use them on a regular basis when I am dipping too much into the waters of nihilism, and it engulfs you because it has a pulling aspect to it, nihilism, and it brings me down to this deep, dark depression where nothing matters and everything's terrible and fuck everything and fuck life.
Yeah.
I've built in somehow this safety kind of valve that I just pump, and all of a sudden I start with 12 Rules for Life on Audible, and I start listening to that, and then it leads me to then I just YouTube some of his other lectures, and then next thing you know, I'm back on top.
Yeah.
But I rely on that motherfucker and his insight, especially that book, to bring me out of holes when I can recognize now that I'm going in, when I catch myself in the downward spiral.
Yeah.
It has saved me multiple times. This year, 2020, I've probably listened to that book 3 times this year.
Really?
Because it has saved me multiple times. Because much like, I don't remember if we talked about it.
I wish I had the audiobook. If I had the audiobook, I'm sure I would listen to it frequently.
And he narrates it. So, get that shit. Do you have Audible?
Yeah.
Fuck. Okay. Because I don't know if I can recommend you
just
another
through
book.
Jordan's thing. I could probably sign up for it myself.
If you started a new one, I bet you I can deliver it. I can recommend it to you to a new user for free. I'm pretty sure. If not, whatever amount of money you got to pay for it, it's 1,000% worth it.
Yeah.
Because the ability to just go, all right, I'm having a really shitty day. Click play on Rule 5. Done. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, I'm out of it.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah, the dude is amazing in it. That's literally why during that interview I cried multiple times because I'm like, this dude is struggling through some shit.
Yeah.
And he's been through it with his family and blah, 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 blah. And the dude is me and you went to his show in Seattle, and the dude, no individual on this face of the planet has affected me more than JBP has. Fuck, I'm just getting all teary-eyed thinking about him now.
Well, I mean, we've spoken to many people in official and recreational capacities about the different ways that
I'm curious where that line is.
Go
ahead. Just keep going. Keep going.
That came to my mind about the different ways that we've applied those ideas to our lives. You know,
I like to quote rules to people when I can.
Yeah, and there are some that we use more than others, but I don't think that the value that he's brought to our lives could really be understated.
I don't think so.
Let's finish up the last couple
Sorry,
of these.
go
No, you're fine, because the last question that they really asked were why they should win. Right, and Biden said that everything was worse under Donald Trump and blamed him for the recession, which I think is one of the bolder claims that I heard, to try and blame Donald Trump for the recession that accompanies the global pandemic of the coronavirus, to which he is currently suffering
on multiple levels.
So that's very interesting to me. It's easier to blame the legislation or the legislative branch than anybody else because of their inability to fucking do anything to try and stimulate the economy or keep anybody alive during this time.
Stagnated by not the difference in ideas, right? We're not at gridlock in the Senate and in the House for idea-based situations. We are gridlocked in this House and Senate based out of pure idealism. Ideologues and their ideas. That's why we're gridlocked.
Yes. And right, because it's not like Donald Trump has had a bunch of different bills at his desk and he's just been like, no, I'm cool. It's like that's not happened. There hasn't been a single piece of legislation as far as coronavirus stimulus that's hit his desk that he's just chosen not to sign. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
So that's
we're still waiting on our second bill, by the way.
Ludicrous to me.
Our stimulus recovery package number 2.
After that is when Donald Trump failed to try and be presidential about Beau Biden, right? When they started to talk about Beau and Hunter, and
about as disgusting as you can get.
Yes,
again, served up on a silver platter, and just instead of just, here's the softball on a silver platter. All you got to do is hit it like you're playing t-ball out of the park. No. He takes and he smashes the dish, and you go like, nope, fuck it. I'm going to destroy this whole thing. Fuck it. Beau Biden, I'm not going to talk about him. I'm not going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I'm not going to say he was an American hero. I'm not going to say
nothing.
All the things, especially as a technical conservative with an R behind his behind his name.
Even just a small one.
So easy to do, and you are not coherent enough. You're not smart enough. You're not present enough. You're not cohesive enough to articulate that at all. Much less tried to do it. He just didn't do it at all.
Yeah. If John McCain were here, he'd be flipping his shit.
There's we'll just say that. That's another discussion, but
it's true.
It is very true.
He'd be flipping his shit.
I think commentary was talking about the difference if McCain had been president versus Trump at this point, and you look at maybe it must have been Tim Pool, because if McCain would have been elected, Trump has done a lot of anti-war things in the Middle East and getting the fuck out and all this good stuff, which is, if you were to ask me, good thing, super opinion. But, for a lot of people, if McCain would have been in, we wouldn't be dealing with certain problems, but we'd probably be in Iran by now if McCain was in, so it's a toss-up.
After this, they get asked about the Green New Deal. So they have to be talking about the economy or the environment. Yeah, and Joe Biden said that the Green New Deal isn't his deal and he doesn't support it.
No,
right?
That's a fucking
Which is
lie.
interesting because Kamala Harris co-sponsored it in the Senate. Mm-hmm. She co-sponsored it to be introduced in the Senate. So,
and now that he has picked her due to intersectionality to be part of his administration, to be the VP,
they're tied.
Her problems are his problems.
Yeah. So I get that Joe Biden has never technically said I am in support of the Green New Deal, but by picking a vice president who introduced the Green New Deal into the Senate, it certainly would indicate that you are favorable towards the Green New Deal at the very least.
Much more in favor than opposed at that point.
Yes. So I think I'd be interested to see
I mean, he
how
talked
that
about
washes
his
out.
rebuilding of homes and infrastructure and all this stuff too, and which was X amount of dollars versus the Green New Deal being $10 trillion or whatever
Right.
it is, and it's the same basic concept. He just wouldn't. He's not willing to flesh out that entire topic and discuss it. But on a more higher elevated position, when you're looking at this, if you're looking at this a little higher up, more top down, Joe Biden as a candidate himself, and it might just be me. This might just be my opinion. So please interject if you have other
You're
ideas
already
here or
wrong.
thoughts. I'm used to it. Joe Biden, I don't see as necessarily somebody who holds, at least at this point in his career and his life, I don't see him outwardly espousing views that he holds as his own anymore.
No, I think
I feel like he has 100% been, if this was the rise of the Vox Populi, which we thought was Trump, and as it turns out, no, that was just get the Republicans in power, now Mitch McConnell takes over. Like the populist candidate at this point is Joe Biden. And if he is more of just a puppet of the Vox Populi. And if you don't understand who that is, please just Google it, the Vox Populi. It's essentially the populace. He's a very populist president. We've gotten away from fundamental candidates who believe in fundamental ideas and all this, and we've just devolved into populism, but death of the Roman Empire. But the way he espouses the ideas is that you can just tell he's a third party.
It's just
he's just here to just say what he wants. And Kamala Harris more embodies the true values of that
and hardcore
new
ideology.
Party. Yes, and the ideology behind it 100%. And that's what terrifies me more than anything else when looking at Biden. Because a part of me wants to vote for Biden because it's like, oh, sweet, I would love just to go back to things where the way things were back when he was in, because then we could just talk politics again. But, but if, what do you think to the people that talk about, maybe that just say outright that a vote for Biden for president is essentially just a vote for Kamala Harris? Due to age and so on and so forth and blah, blah, blah. Regardless of one term or two. I don't know the logistics of it, who he is, the age. It is just being what it is. There is a higher chance than ever that the vice president might have to take over than any time in history.
I think that even if Joe Biden is alive for his whole term, if he wins, I think Kamala Harris would likely have similar amounts of influence to
do you think Kamala Harris could be the puppeteer? The puppet master?
Yeah, I think that she would probably have similar amounts of influence as who the fuck am I thinking of?
Oh, I know who you're talking
Bale
about.
Movie.
Yeah, you're talking about George W. Bush and Vice President Dick Cheney.
Yes.
There it is. I knew if I said
yes. Yeah. So I would comparable to Dick Cheney. I would say less personal.
So in other words, I shouldn't be offended
benefit,
by that idea because it's happened before.
It happened before. Right. We've seen it. Yeah, somebody that
it's just knowing at this point.
As far as what you said about Biden holding less personal opinions, I think you're pretty on base. I think that him and Trump are very similar in that aspect. That Donald Trump has personal opinions, but as far as what's happening, like I said, I don't think there's a single piece of legislation that if it hit his desk, he wouldn't sign it. Because if it comes out of the House and the Senate, he's just going to fucking sign it,
What is Trump vetoed?
And that's what I'm saying. I don't know that there's a bill that he's vetoed. And I think part of it is a side effect of how extremely divided
8 bills, apparently.
that he's vetoed. So
President Donald Trump vetoed 8 bills. This is according to the Senate.gov. Subject: Iran Wars Resolution, the Borrower Defense Institutional Accountability Regulation Rule, relating to a national emergency declaration president on February 15th, the Yemen War Powers Resolution, Saudi Arabia and United Kingdom and Great Britain and Northern Ireland Arms and Sales Disapproval Resolution, UAE arms sales disapproval resolution.
Interesting.
Yeah, right? They all happen to be weapons deals.
They all happen to be things that he would like to continue forward with.
What
So
the fuck?
okay, so
I'm not going to lie. I did not expect that.
I'll double down on that.
Yeah, go for it.
There's very, very few things as far as legislation goes that will hit Donald Trump's desk that he wouldn't sign, right? And
except for arms deals, apparently.
Except for arms deals. Well, but those are disapprovals. Those are saying that they don't agree with his arms deal.
Yeah, disapprovals
right?
of arms deals.
Exactly. So that even further doesn't surprise me, right? So
that I thought there might be something.
Yeah, and I think maybe Donald Trump doesn't seem. He seems more ideological,
do I sign this?
but only because he's talking so much more. He's saying so much more stuff all the time because he's reacting to everything all the time.
No president in history has ever had an open line of communication to the American public than President Trump.
He has a take on everything all the time, but I don't think that influences like his actual genuine. You know, if you sat down and got to know Donald Trump, I don't think that's like those things are indicative of who he is. You know what I'm saying?
Put it pretty well when he was talking about it this week, and he says, there are certain subjects at which, when a lot of people feel they need to speak, like very few people just look at a subject and go, I don't really have anything to say about that.
Yeah.
And I don't think, I think that's Trump is the opposite guy. He goes, subject,
I always
opinion.
Have an opinion. Yeah.
Yeah.
The last question or the last point that I have here is that Biden said there was no evidence of voter fraud in mail-in voting, right? So they had to be asked about the fairness of the election.
None whatsoever, Donovan.
And so, right, so we can talk about this and then we can talk about sports, right?
Yes.
Because those new Project Veritas videos came out. Larry Dixon said something to me on Twitter. I don't know whether or not he was joking.
I couldn't tell.
Took him as joking, and that's why I responded the way that I did.
Yes.
I honestly don't know.
And he didn't respond back, right?
No.
Because I was very interested
Which
in that
even
context
further
as well.
made me, I don't know, right?
Well, he'll listen to this and we'll find out. I hope. Larry, listen to the show, please.
Tell me what you meant.
Because I'm curious.
Yes.
This is why
So,
conversation over text is really bad.
and I'm not saying that they are real, right? Because I don't know. But I
That's
know
the problem with Project
that
Veritas.
Project
it's an
Veritas,
anecdotal experience on video every time.
But I know that Project Veritas has a consistent record of legitimately defending themselves and people having to print retractions based off of the things that they've said about them.
They're a legal precedent at this point. They have won legal cases against defamation. I know one big one.
What?
The one big lawsuit that they won,
cases, Well, and they have the whole wall in their office, all the people, all the stuff they're doing all the time, right?
Yeah.
So I
but
know
it doesn't help
that
me feel less
if
shady
that
about it.
Is true, right? No, it's not good.
Right,
And he's had discussions about that with like Eric Weinstein and stuff. And I'm not defending his tactics, right? But at the end of the day, if you're uncovering things that are true, then it is what it is, And I know I'd hate to be like, fucking the ends justify the means, but like they're not like hurting anybody, they're just doing kind of like sneaky shit. But I mean, like physically, they're not harming anybody. They're fucking with people's reputations because those people are doing shady shit, but they're not making things up about people.
Shit.
They're exactly
messing with the vote is.
And so that's why I'm like, if you're exposing the fact that she's committing felonies and paying people for their ballots, do I really care that you did it in kind of a shady way? Not particularly, because if you didn't do that.
To say individuals who are tied to you are committing felonious acts on your behalf, which is another
and that's fine. I'm not alleging that she's doing that, right? What I'm saying is that as long as they're not doing anything that's hurting somebody, I don't particularly care. Like that's not. As long as it's legal
as far as the validity of
their reporting, it's not as long as it's legal. Because
for people that don't know what Project Veritas does, they generally they get whistleblower complaints from within corporations or political movements or whatever it is about bad things that are happening within it. People that think that things are happening illegally or they're whatever it is. And so they will report that to Project Veritas. They make an infiltration into that organization And they will catch certain
It's not even
individuals
that
on hidden
anymore.
cameras,
It's
right?
not even that anymore. Now they'll
everybody's got a
generally
camera.
have the whistleblowers get that information themselves. It's not even James O'Keefe and those people are so well known now by their because he used to dress up and shit. And that's why people didn't like it so much because he was disguising himself and would like meet people at bars and shit.
So
They're
it's
like,
like
oh, well,
another evolution.
you're fucking buying people drinks and then they're saying shit. It's like, yeah, you know what I'm saying? I don't.
It's called the honeypot, bro.
People say shit after a drink or two that they wouldn't say normally, you know?
Yeah.
And if you're talking about
You catch me
people
about 3
who
hours
work
into the
at
podcast,
tech companies that are involved in hiding opinions in America, I can see why it might take them 2 drinks to be open about that, you know?
That was the last release, right?
The
social media individuals.
So I'm not saying that those things are true. Do you know what I'm saying? But it
it's hard
seems
to not take.
look very not good.
Yeah.
And there seems to be financial ties between the two. And I find it doubly troubling that I don't like that way that sounded at all.
Double trouble.
I find it even more troubling that the party who is arguing in favor of mail-in voting is taking part in activities that bring into question its very integrity.
Well,
we live in a state that we have been voting by mail for years now.
Oh, a long time.
I know for a fact that it can work.
Yep.
So I find it, like I said, extremely frustrating that the party that is arguing in favor for it is doing things that are questioning its integrity. And
I think I can go back to previous episodes where I've argued that point where, Washington State can get away with it because we've done it for a long time. There's certain other states just like us that can do it. But to ask every state in the nation to try to just shift gears at this point when we know how slow government bureaucracy works, to have it be valid, I think it was completely unrealistic.
Well, and I just heard
and
2 weeks ago, like logistically, I just heard like 2 weeks ago that they were like, oh, now they're talking about putting in ballot drop boxes in places so that you don't have to mail them. Like,
imagine that.
What? Why weren't you doing that before? Because that's what the fuck we do here.
I thought that's what you did.
That's what we do here. There are fucking ballot drop boxes all over the place. They don't
just
go in
go to a
mailboxes.
post
They
box.
go in the mail drop, like in the ballot drop box. They're at fucking schools and post offices and libraries. There's one in
Fire
Keyport.
departments and
They're
shit.
all over the place.
Yes.
I don't understand why that wasn't part of the initial infrastructure plan as far as mail-in voting goes.
Which is why trying to just do this at the last minute was a really fucking bad idea.
Concerning.
Because Washington, as it is, we do have a very good track record with our mail-in voting, if you want to call it that at that point, the absentee voting at that point where you don't go to a poll place and get a little sticker that says, I fucking voted. We've been doing that for a very long time, and it's worked out pretty well, right? As far as we can tell. I don't know. I haven't dived deep into any kind of...
but
it seems
to my
pretty secure at this point.
there are not any large-scale or significant voter scandals in our state. If there are, I'm more than happy to have people expose them to us. But to my knowledge, there are not.
We have a separate problem where our legislature decides to legally fight against the votes of the people to protect the votes that they did without a vote of the people. But that's a totally different thing. Yeah, and that's the difference between having that white mailbox and the blue mailbox.
Yes.
It's because we have a white mailbox that sits there at the same places for years and years and years, and the only time it's ever full is when it's time to vote. And then we vote, and it goes in there, and the rest of the people vote at the polling place. Done. It's not that hard to set up, and I understand a simple thing like that for every state government to try to take on and make decisions about and to actually carry through and execute would take years. It would take an entire election cycle, probably 4 years for a government to actually do that and to have it in place. And then another 4 years to figure out the system of bureaucracy you need behind that to accurately get a count. But it's entirely possible. It is very simple, realistically.
Yeah.
But the concept that the entire nation was going to be able to just jump on board like that within a matter of months is ludicrous, if you ask, I think, most people. And not to derail the idea of mail-in voting, because, I mean, unless we make this motherfucker an actual national holiday and give people the day off, go out and vote, I don't see any way that you could do it other than that. other than absentee and a heavy mail-in, because people have lives.
Like you gotta
unknowingly
do
to
one.
most people.
You got to do one. Either give everyone like 3 days off, so that they can go.
And
Like
that's what I'm
you know,
multiple days, like a vacation, a 3-day vacation.
It's voting week. This is
Done.
voting week.
Yes.
It's a whole federal holiday. Everybody gets paid for a week.
That would be my favorite thing on the face of the planet, by the way.
Like that's.
Yeah.
Everybody pick a day, right? It's organized at that point. It's organized through your local county.
Yep.
At which day you are supposed to go down to the polls and vote, so there isn't fucking mile-long lines outside of the place.
Yeah.
Funny thing that you say that in Ecuador, it is obligatory.
Yes.
Mandatory.
I forgot to bring that up.
To actually have that day off. The whole country
Yep.
has a day off. for
They're
everyone to
mandatory.
vote.
Tell me why
Kinda
the
like the
fuck
census.
it's happening in Ecuador and not in America. Not to like place them on a dig. You know what I'm saying? Like
You know
a
what?
fucking. But
It's because they're.
I just assume there's a reason that your family came here. Do you know what I'm saying? So
You're right. It's because that's
not that it's a shithole country or
it's
anything.
because
Donald
that-
Trump.
At that
but-
point, when you're
Legally.
yeah,
politically.
and again, this is just gonna be me grasping at straws here, but
Yes.
I would imagine in a
grasp away.
in a Latin American country such as Ecuador or Chile or Brazil or something like that,
Venezuela.
Venezuela, a mandatory election would be put into place
Oh,
to
no, not
to
Venezuela.
add credence, because if there is a mandatory day of election, if every
Right.
citizen of the United States, if it was obligatory and it was mandatory to go and vote,
Have to go.
you cannot. There is an air of legitimacy. There's an air of legitimacy put behind every single election.
Right.
So no matter what you do on the side, everybody voted. There's nobody that was
Everybody had the day off. Of
right?
course they went.
Everybody had to vote. They had to vote. So this is definitely the will of the people, period. Full stop, no argument, go fuck yourself. I'm out.
Right.
I am now president again for life, period. But we don't have that problem here.
Yeah.
Like, we don't have that. And again, my case against voter apathy, I don't know if that's such a good thing or a bad thing, but, you know, some people shouldn't be in charge, you know? There's some people
Yeah.
in your daily life. How many people do you come across on the road? And you don't drive that much, right? Where you go, that motherfucker should not be on the goddamn road,
All the time.
right?
Like almost every day.
Now, carry that over to, how does that person vote? Why do they vote? What's going through their head? Do they really know what's going on? Do they dive into 40 hours plus of fucking commentary every day and article reading and watching videos of all this stuff to discern whether or not you have an informed opinion or not?
Yeah.
Probably not, but they should definitely go out and vote. There's a problem there. And I'm not going to say that I'm not going to advocate for like a test for voting or whatever it is. You know, there's a lot of different ideas, but you can't say that. But at the same time, there's some validity behind it, in a way.
Wouldn't be mad
All
about
those, it wouldn't be.
I'm just kidding.
You can't make it mandatory at that point, because the people that don't want to vote, you don't want them to vote anyways, because they're not plugged in.
I don't know. I don't want anybody
that's
to
all
not
I-
vote. That's
I don't either. I don't want anybody to not have the right to vote and to be able to just go out and cast their vote. But you know for a fact, just like I don't want anybody to not be held back from a driver's license, but there's a lot of people that shouldn't be on the road. Right?
Yeah, but
that's just the
yeah,
messy
I'm-
reality of being a freedom-loving American.
that's the reality of like everything ever. There are
Ever,
people who
yeah.
shouldn't drink alcohol. There are people who shouldn't even drink caffeine.
It's a little too
You know what I'm
finite.
saying?
A little too finite.
Yeah, there's.
Yep.
Yeah, you can't be telling people what they should and shouldn't be doing. You
But
know.
isn't that kind of the general problem with just talking about politics in general? Because there is a black and white way we're supposed to run things, but there's a hell of a lot of gray area in which we all operate in.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
with some fundamental ties back to that black and white.
Yeah.
So, sorry, what was that last topic of the debate?
That was it. Validity of
That was
mail-in
it.
voting.
Yeah, because I'm down with mail-in voting again. I'm down with mail-in voting. We all need
Yeah,
time.
no shit. We do it here, Colin.
And I kind of wish, in a weird way, that we can all have a national minimum standard of voting that we can all essentially do. I wish in a perfect world that we can all do voting the way we do in Washington State, where we all have the white box and we all have the blue box.
I don't think there's
you know,
any reason that we can't. I just
We
think
couldn't.
that-
It's just timing.
yeah.
Timing. And if to bring it a little bit more into reality, right? Like let's just play around with some hypotheticals real quick. We did 4 hours last week, Don, or a couple weeks ago. Don. I'm going to stress this one a little bit. I just want one more opinion out of you. If we could, I don't know, give me your perfect world in the way voting would go down in the United States of America, given the fact that every state has to have their own autonomy and run their own elections, even on the federal level, right?
I don't see there's any reason that people can't vote online.
Online? No security issues.
I deposit my check through my fucking phone.
That's a good point.
I can file my taxes on my phone.
That's a very good point.
I know I'm a little more concerned about people getting my social security number than knowing who I voted for. So I don't see any reason that
could somebody steal your
aren't able to. Somebody could steal anything.
That's true.
I don't have any way to. Why am I allowed to?
So
apparently, me and everybody else in the world, it feels secure as long as there's a little lock next to whatever fucking website I'm on my phone.
True.
So I don't understand.
We all do feel better when we see that, right?
So I don't understand why there isn't a way for us to vote
online.
You
got the Joe Rogan method.
And I don't know what it is, but if there's a way, even if everybody has to get an ID, I don't know why there isn't a reason why they're not going to people's houses to fucking print IDs out. Because when I went to sign up for my fucking bank account at BECU, they printed my debit card out. So my debit card is textureless. It's flat. So I don't know why there isn't a way for. I have my wallet in my pocket here. Yeah, no, I don't see why there isn't a way.
You don't show the fucking card on the internet, but it's cool.
It's textureless.
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 Yes.
Yeah, word. Because
so I don't see why there isn't a way for
to vote online.
No, not even that. To go to people's houses and print them a fucking ID. I understand there's people homeless and shit, but I mean the general argument. Okay, so I say that because the general argument against like a voter ID. So there's old people who don't have driver's license,
or
they can't go.
Folks.
Right, they can't afford it. They can't go down here. They can't find a bus to go and do this. It's this and this, travel, all this shit. Right.
Yeah.
Take 4 years because it's gonna take a while.
Yes.
Go to every fucking house that's listed in the United States, right?
Like the
give
census.
everyone a job, right? Just like the fucking census.
Or do it while you're doing the census.
Go to everybody's house, print them an ID, use that, scan it the same way I scan a fucking check on my phone. Allow me to vote that way. All you need is the app, and you don't even need your own phone. You can use somebody else's phone as long as you have the card that we printed out and gave to you at your own fucking house, wherever you were staying at that time, because it really just shows that you are who you are. We verified that when we gave this to you. Took your fucking picture, printed it out. Here you go. Find a phone, scan this, fucking move on. It's 2020. There's a chip.
There's a $500,000 in taxes to pay for the plastic to print that shit out for sure.
It doesn't make it.
And there's just one idea.
Like
there's got to be.
And I'm not a scientist,
ideas, right?
So there seems like
it could be so simple.
Yes.
But at that point, do we need to forfeit more control to the federal government at that point to run our elections?
What do they not run now?
Yeah, I mean that's a good point. But I mean, technically, every state does things differently. Right, it's the reason why that's why I have a mail-in vote.
But as far as the federal general election goes, we all fill out a ballot. If you're going to go somewhere and vote, everybody's like the system they use might be different. So maybe they all want to develop their own app or whatever the fuck, because some of them still use paper, and some of them you have like voting, things, little digital things that look like those old fucking Game Boys, the Atari whatevers.
What?
Do you know? Yeah. Yeah,
I haven't seen those.
Yeah, voting machines.
I've seen a lot of old voting machines where you go in it looks more like a slot machine.
Yeah, no, not like that anymore. They're like a lot of them are way smaller. And so
I've been on absentee for a long
everybody,
time.
everybody does their own thing. So I don't, develop your own app if you want. I don't have a problem with it, but I don't see why it's not.
Yeah, out of all the things that we do online, if you can bank online, you should be able to vote, and you should be able to vote online.
Yeah. And like I said, if your social security number is supposed to be the most sacred thing that the government ever gives you, that's the only way we know that you're you.
They just protect it.
Whatever. The social security number. They provide it to you. You know what I'm saying? I don't have.
Yeah.
Until the government, I didn't have a social security number. So that's.
I thought you said right to vote. Sorry. My bad.
No. Social security number.
Yeah.
If they give that to us, and that's the most, sacred thing that they ever give us, then I don't.
Which it really is, isn't it?
Why can I not fucking vote on my phone? I'm way more likely to do it if I can vote on my phone. Wow. If all I have to do is scan the card that you just gave to me. You know what I'm saying? Put a little QR thingy on there, the little fucked up little block thing, That's what that's called, right?
Oh, you got ideas. Yeah. No,
that
you
just
got
doesn't
ideas,
seem like that's that complicated.
So almost like you wouldn't be opposed to essentially a constitutional amendment to say that, okay, federal elections will be run by the federal government, state elections will be run by the states.
I mean, I feel like the federal...
Because they already do that, essentially, really.
Like I said, it can be done state by state. I'm not saying it has to be run through the federal government, but I feel like the easiest way to collect those votes would be for each state to either develop their own app or have one company develop an app for everybody. Even if they're developing 50 different apps, just have one company do it so they know that the level of security is all up to here because this one security company developed all of the apps, right?
Yeah.
Then... Just a way of them collecting the data. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I mean, still, if you want to fucking caucus or whatever stupid shit for the primary, then do that. That's fine. But when we're going to collect your vote, do it on your phone. Just send it to it. Just text it to me.
Just text me.
Yeah, just
text
me.
it to 303.
Yeah, Joe. Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
That was a deep cut for you primary folks.
Exactly.
Oh my God! 3330. You can't tell if he's stuttering or if that's actually you're supposed to repeat the threes.
Yeah.
So, anyways, let's talk about fantasy football.
Yes. So as far as sports, it's been a long time.
It has been a long time. Do you have a line today, by the way?
I think I got one.
I'm really stoked about it.
Yeah, because I forgot one last week. I didn't. Last week was weird. Last show was weird. Yeah, last show I didn't have a line. That's the first time in the history of the show. I just was like, okay, bye.
So before we get on that, Chad texted me a little while ago because he was watching the pre-show. He's like, so Don's mom slid into my DMs.
Oh my God, she totally did. She was fucking, she called me the other day and she was like, asking me about Casey and like his bovine podiatry because she wants to like go and like watch Casey do whatever, right? And
she wants to watch Chad do some chewing.
Yeah. First she thought that Casey was a farrier, and I was like, no, Chad's the farrier. Like it's Colin's brother. And she was like, do you think that he would let me? I'm like, I'm sure. Like I don't know why not. And like you're both individuals. I'm like, I don't. You can ask him if you want. And she was like, well, how do I do it? I was like, just like send him like a direct message on like Facebook or whatever. Yeah. So I don't know what she says. And she has to, I'm not talking shit about her, but she has dyslexia. So her messages are not always the most clear. So hopefully they were like,
well, it sounds like,
decent.
He got the gist. She just wants to watch him do some chewing.
Yes.
To see what it's all about.
Yes.
And so I'm going to tell him. I'll be like, yeah, man, she's just a really curious
Was he like, what the fuck is this about?
Like, he just was like, question mark. It's like, so Don's mom slid into my DMs and apparently she wants to see me do some chewing, question mark.
Really weird.
Yeah, no, she's just
my
interested,
mom's
man.
Really weird.
I don't blame her. She's very curious.
So
she likes to explore new shit.
Curious is probably a really good way to put it.
And I have to do that because I'm very curious about a lot of things. I'll go job shadow anybody to see what they fucking do. I'm curious.
Yeah.
Good for Kathy.
So this is week 4 of the NFL. As we talked about earlier.
Although my fantasy team could probably beg to differ.
Well, no matter what, they're going to tell you it's week 4. Even
it
if
is
it's
indeed.
Not.
It is indeed.
And so some college conferences have already started playing the SEC, the Big 10.
Oh, interesting. They moved them now to, instead of the status for my 2 players that were on... oh shit! What's the word? Where you skip? Where you kind of postpone? They were postponed.
Yes.
So it was like PSP or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now there was the official standing as far as like where it puts their opponent in ranking and shit like that. It says bye now.
Yeah.
They're officially on a bye week now.
Yes. And so what Colin is referring to is over the last 2 weeks there have been a series of positive tests throughout the NFL. I believe there was 8 individuals on the Titans that tested positive, and now
for the COVID.
for COVID-19, and now
Derrick Henry isn't one of them. Poor guy.
And now we have seen positive tests on the Patriots. Cam Newton tested positive this morning, and we've also seen positive tests on the Kansas City Chiefs.
Positive.
Yes.
Who is the quarterback for the Pats now?
Cam Newton.
Cam Newton is... I missed that. Okay, so that makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
Fucking Cam Newton.
And so what that means for individual players is there is a COVID-19 IR designation, both in fantasy and in real life. So usually when you're placed on the injured reserve, you're on the injured reserve for 8 weeks, no matter what. That's it. And that's a way that they can maintain you on the team but fill your roster slot, right? So in the case of Cam Newton, because it's a COVID IR, it's 2 weeks. And so he'll be he'll be on IR for 2 weeks, so he doesn't have to stay. Because even if you're on IR and you get better after 4 weeks, if they place you on IR, you cannot play for 4 more weeks.
Yeah. You still got to do your 2-week quarantine.
Right.
Protocol.
And so now, instead of it being 8 weeks, it's cut down to 2 weeks. It's a special designation, so they don't have to wait 8 weeks just for COVID-19, right? And so... presumably, Cam Newton will be treated for COVID-19. He'll have to receive several negative tests before he's able to return back to practice.
Get himself some remdesivir.
But then he'll be good to go. We've seen several players, Von Miller included, who have had COVID-19 in the off season, recovered from it, and were going to play. We have also seen the head coach for the Chargers had COVID-19, and he's coaching. He's just fine. That happened in the off season. Him and his whole family.
I'd be curious to watch some of their to put an asterisk behind their name as far as their stats go. That might help. That might help the world
offensive
study.
lineman for the Rams had COVID-19, and he is playing right now.
Yeah.
He had it in the off season. He's
So it would be good, I think, to study the after effects of COVID-19 on pro athletes.
Yes.
That would be a good idea to see if their stats start to drop after that. There might be some physical problems that have affected people after COVID-19. That'd be really interesting to watch.
That lineman for the Rams, I don't remember what his name is, but he said him and his wife both had it, and they still didn't really have their senses of smell. And so there are some lingering, but that's all that he really said. I'm sure part of that is just from him being so healthy to begin with.
Yep.
I'd be interested to see. As far as officially, there'll be on an IR designation
for 2 straight weeks.
For 2 weeks, yep. As far as the teams go and the games, the Patriots and Chiefs game has been rescheduled for Tuesday, right? And that's kind of how they were trying to do this other stuff, and that's what they were going to do with the Titans and the Steelers, and they had 2 more positive tests on the Titans. Oof. And so they just changed this to, like you said, to their bye week. They shifted bye weeks for the Steelers and the Titans to this week. They're going to replay this game in week 8, I think, and then they changed that other game for the Steelers to a different week.
Okay, so at this point, it's kind of like every team has a bye week, right?
Yes.
And so at this point, if you are in a compromised position for 1 week, it allows you as a team to adjust your bye week to take this week as your bye week, assuming that enough teams don't have to force their bye week into the same week. You can keep the season essentially the same exact length, because otherwise we're just looking at
There's only so much shuffling that can be done as far as bye weeks go. After a certain point, you're going to have to extend the season. You're going to have to start shifting things around.
If you're going to move the game to Tuesday of the next week, at that point you have Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, essentially Tuesday and Wednesday, because the week kind of starts on Thursday later in the season. So you have 2 days there to get essentially half the teams at that point, depending on when they fall, to fall either on a Tuesday or a Wednesday to replay the games. And in that case, the season is essentially the same exact length. Otherwise, we need to start lengthening the season. Just numerically at that point, right?
And then
which I have no problem with football just being a little bit longer.
Yeah.
Because it always seems real quick.
You also start to run into concerns of recovery time and stuff like that. There's a lot of athletes that don't like Thursday games as it is, because if you play on a Sunday, you have to play on a Thursday the next week. That's 3 less days of recovery that you might get normally. So
and when you're going for that long,
there are already players that opted out of the season before it started because they didn't want to risk COVID-19. There were many players
that just was like,
there was a minimum salary that you could take to opt out for the season, and so you'd still get paid a certain amount of money, and you don't have to play.
Do you happen to know what the minimum salary was?
I do not remember off the top of my head. Not very much, but a decent regular American salary. Yeah, it wasn't $100,000, I don't think. it was pretty small as far as NFL salaries go. But yeah, I would just look up NFL COVID opt-out salary, and that'll probably give it to you. Like a lot of Patriots players, their defense struggled a lot because they had a lot of players who opted out because of COVID. That was pretty common. So
and realistically, no judgment towards them.
No,
none at all.
No,
Because
as nobody knows. Nobody has any fucking idea
No.
how any of this works. So I don't judge anybody for not wanting to further
69 NFL
risk.
players, according to Fox Business, have opted out.
Yeah, a fair amount. And I don't remember exactly what the salary was. There are a lot of people. The person I'm playing in fantasy this week, Lacey, she's fucking struggling. She's in a bad spot. She had a lot of injuries. There's a lot of injuries to begin with because there was no preseason, right? Football was so up in the air, and our draft was so last minute because I didn't even know that football was going to happen. I wasn't for certain. So I didn't want to plan anything. What is it?
Okay. So players, so this is according to Fox Business, players who are considered high-risk case for COVID-19 are eligible for a $350,000 stipend to receive.
There you
the
go.
higher stipend players had to demonstrate a diagnosed medical history of high risk factor, such as cancer or diabetes, as defined by a list compiled by the U.S. Centers of Disease Control. Players concerned players considered voluntarily opt-outs will receive a $150,000 stipend, but will not earn a season credit. The $150,000 is essentially an advance on future salary.
Yeah, it doesn't count as if you're on like a 4-year contract. It doesn't count as a year off your contract. So $150,000. So that's pretty good. That's more than I thought it was. But
really, I mean, that's as far as like NFL contracts are concerned. It's like a go fuck yourself. Here's cab fare.
That's like I think like a veteran minimum is like $150,000. So right, look that up. What's the NFL veteran minimum?
NFL veteran minimum.
Yeah, there are minimum for rookies and veterans. Rookie contract's pretty small.
Oh, it's like the number one thing when it came out. Oh, veteran minimum salary of $1.05 million in 202 under the new deal.
There you go.
Up
from
they just the 810,000. Okay, so this is an exponentially higher number.
Even more than I thought it was.
Holy fuck balls!
Tells you how connected I am.
Like, realistic 6-7 times what you would get for COVID opt-out.
Yeah.
Which, okay, so on a balanced scale, right, of the bodily harm and shortness of life that we know every NFL player just puts up front when they join the NFL, period, right, compared to the opt-out volume of, the stipend of $150,000 compared to $810,000 just for playing the game.
But that's a veteran minimum. That's like
veteran. Okay, yeah, I guess the identification of a veteran versus.
Well, not even that. I just mean as far as the minimum goes. Like most people aren't making the veteran minimum. Like you're gonna make the veteran minimum if you are not a starting player, but you're on the team and you're going to be playing. But like
for players with 7 to 9 years of experience as a veteran.
Yeah, and so what I'm saying is that if you've played for, say, if you are a vet, right, but you're only going to be making the minimum salary if you're not on a contract, and
plus
you're like
the stipend.
What?
Like plus the stipend. You're still going to get your vet minimum if you're a veteran that takes the COVID opt out.
No,
you
get the stipend instead of that. What I'm saying is that the veteran minimum only applies generally in normal football. You're only going to be making the minimum because you're not on a contract with the team and you got picked up later. Like I said, you're not a starter. A starter is going to be making way more than the veteran minimum. Mm-hmm. That's just like a
It's
obviously
right.
So there aren't that many people who make
like Todd Gurley the third.
Yeah,
who I just traded for this week.
Right.
And I'm super happy about it. Hopefully, because it's against the player Who am I playing?
Right.
Joe Hike?
Yeah.
I forget his name. He changed his name.
There's a lot of people who are struggling. So like I said, injuries were a big problem because there was no preseason.
That's true. Rip Quan. I mean, no preseason this year.
And
fuck, man. I don't know.
Now
about this
we
week,
are
man.
dealing with this continued issue of COVID-19 designations, different positives.
I got 123 projected total this week, man. That's like not real good.
It's not terrible.
It's not terrible, but
I think Lacey's projected for like 80 now because she has all of her.
I want to feel bad for Lacey, but
I have a hard time with.
she won
all of
last year,
this.
right? Or the first year?
She won 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
No, she didn't win last year, and then Casey, her boyfriend, won 2 years ago, and then she won the year before that also.
Right. God, we've been doing this for a lot longer than I thought.
I'm not really sure what to do about payouts and stuff like that this year. I kind of feel bad that this is happening, but
I feel like we'll kind of
also all agreed, like we knew, like what would happen. Playing, but I don't, and I collected like half people's money already. I'm not
I gotta give you. Yeah,
I'm not gonna like tell them they
don't
don't have to give me money because their players ended up like having fucked up bye weeks and shit like that. Like I don't.
But it also should have been.
I don't know what to do about that.
You talked about as the commish for the league, before everybody got into it. It's like we're gonna do this regardless of how it works out, or we're just gonna see how it goes. Are you down? And at that point, I think if you participated at this point, that we're all down for whatever happens, regardless of how it works out. Like I'm really, like I told you before, like I'm really excited to see how the NFL handles all the shuffling of the games and whatnot. And honestly, at this point, just from what I've what you told me about like the Tuesday and Wednesday night games, maybe and stuff like that. We might just have a hell of a lot more football on throughout the week,
spread out more.
Which is not. It's going to be a net win, I think, for every NFL fan, which is sweet. Not that I'm watching football this year.
Yeah.
Other than I don't want to go into that too much because I've already been labeled a bigot for not watching NFL this year. But I'm like, I just don't have the time.
Who said that to you?
A lot of just people.
Okay. Tell me after the show.
And it's not that I just don't have the headspace this year. Because I can participate in football through stats, through the news, through fucking listening to fantasy footballers and shit like that. The homies, I would love one day to be able to talk to them and shit like that. And I feel like I blew a chance at that once upon a time because you were fucking talking to one of them fantasy footballers once upon a time. On the socials and shit. But if we were ever in a position, like I would love to chit chat with some serious fantasy football players because you don't actually need to watch football to be a fantasy football player because essentially it's all about stats.
Yeah, I guess not.
It takes away.
Makes it way less fun.
It does.
Yeah.
It really does. But I mean, as far as like the big money leagues and the gambling and shit like that, there's a whole lot more that goes on behind the scenes.
Strategery.
Much like any kind of sports betting, right?
Yeah.
That people that don't necessarily watch it can be heavily involved in those things and still be able to get away with it. So I guess I'm testing the boundaries this year, but I just haven't had the time. I'm not unwilling to watch some football.
Oh.
No, I've just been busy, man. Been busy. It's been busy. I got a lot of shit going on.
And you're trying to have a kid, you said?
I'm trying to have a kid. I'm in a fucking meat crisis, obviously, which I never knew existed until I tasted this deer, and I'm like, I'm legit in a meat crisis. I saw some steaks the other day at the grocery store. It was like New York strip, which knowing the cut, right, is like, really? You're going to charge me $25 for 2 New York strip steaks?
Oh, at the store?
Really? Yeah. On sale?
You pay that like in a restaurant where they're like cooking it for you and shit. You know what I'm saying?
That's like 35 plus, bro.
Well, but that's what I'm saying. Like that's
And whereas I got some premium shit in my freezer for a little bit of a 130-pound pack out for 10 miles, a mile and a half elevation, whatever the fuck it was.
Yeah.
I got that, and I don't need to worry about it. So I'm in a meat crisis, and that kind of shit makes me think about it. But how did I get from NFL to fucking meat crisis?
I don't know.
I don't know either. But all I'm saying is that I'm just not. I don't have a whole lot of time for NFL this year. I wish I did, and I will get it when I can. I will say that I'm not ideologically committed to not watching the NFL, but if I got some time and I have the ability through whatever streaming service I can find that's going to show games essentially for free.
I think next week Amazon starts having the Thursday night games.
All the the major games last year, like throughout the main season, I feel were covered on some streaming network.
Yeah.
But once it got into like playoffs and like when it really counted,
Well, yeah,
then
certainly.
you had to like, if you ain't you paying for cable, what are you doing? But I think I could do it if I really want to, and if I have time, I certainly will, because it is NFL. Watching NFL on a Sunday, like, because I got a lot of anxiety on Sundays because I hate working. I hate going to work, and even if on Monday I have a fantastic day and it's great and everything couldn't have gone better and it's fantastic, I'm still going to have an anxiety attack on Sunday. And NFL helps that. Helps lessen that a lot.
That's very interesting. This is very
eye-opening.
Counter to what you said last week.
Really? What did I say last week? Oh, the political aspect of it?
Yeah.
Well, I might have gotten my shit shoved in my face over between the last 2 weeks.
Then we have to stop because I want to hear about this.
Yeah. We'll talk about that podcast.
Okay, yeah. Well, I want to thank everybody.
No, what's your record real quick? What's your record on fantasy?
Oh, in our league, I'm 3-0.
I'm like 2-1. I'm not doing bad.
Another league, I'm 3-0. And then in 2 other leagues, I'm 2-1.
4 leagues. How the fuck?
I've been in these same leagues for like 4 years, so
we talk about this every time, but I'm still in awe that you could participate in 4 leagues.
Well, one of them is a dynasty league, so you do it like all the time, and so that one takes the least amount of effort, and they're all kind of organized by like how much I care about them, you know. And so our league I give the most shit about because it's the hardest, and it has the most money involved, and then the other ones are just kind of like $300 and $200 leagues. So it's just not like a big deal to me. So
well, just knowing the fact.
But I'm trying to win out. I'm trying to walk out with like 2 G's in fantasy money.
Well, yeah, with 4 leagues.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that's like a realistic thing.
I'm trying to win like enough.
So
money
over under like what
I can buy
going into every single. Don't get into the specifics, obviously, but like going into all the fantasy leagues that you do, how much cash you putting up front on a year in which you would typically put up all the money up front? Are you spending like a G?
Jordan and
over
I
4 leagues
played together. No way.
Because that could be spaced out. It could be. I'm just saying it's not unrealistic.
No. How much money I put into them?
Yeah.
No. One of them is a $35 buy-in. Ours is a $50 buy-in. Another one is a $25 buy-in.
Okay.
And the other one's a $20.
But still, the pots at the end of that are pretty nice.
Yes.
So yeah, one of
them is a 7.
Leagues?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, this is the biggest league that I'm in, and that's why it's the hardest. The other one,
one of them pretty bottom of the barrel.
Is an 8-man league, and the other 2 are 10s. So,
ooh.
And those are pretty standard. 10 or 12 is pretty standard.
Next year, I might need you to
try
to find me a slot in the smaller.
Most people, when I tell them I'm in a 14-team league, they're like, "Oh my god." They're like surprised. It's hard. It's very, very hard.
Highly offensive to the senses.
It's just very difficult. There's just as far as So, I mean, if you compare our league and you think about 6 less teams in it, they're way easier.
Holy shit! The amount of people you can compete for.
Yeah.
The trade's got to be like sweet.
There are people that I can pick up in like my 8-team league that were gone 3 weeks ago in our league. Like, not a fucking chance.
Now, are these leagues franchise leagues?
What?
The other leagues that you play in, are they franchise leagues?
Just one.
Okay. Now, would you...
Like the Dynasty League.
Dynasty League, sorry. Yeah. That's what I meant. Nomenclature. Would you ever recommend our league going to a Dynasty League? And why or why not?
No.
I'm really trying to extend the sports thing because I need some knowledge, man. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This is all going to be a nice consumable clip on YouTube one day. Don't worry about it.
No. I mean, I don't. No, because it's different play styles. In the Dynasty League, you're like drafting rookies and shit like that. And
and when you're already running a 14-player league or team league like that, it's got to be...
Would be really, really hard to do Dynasty with 14 teams. You have to have way bigger benches and stuff like that, and there's not enough players for us to have.
So what would you recommend if we wanted, like if there was a Dynasty League that I would become involved in? Because I don't know if there's room in any of yours.
Why are you asking me all this stuff?
Because I really enjoy fantasy, and I'm not gonna lie, but I wanna like expand my horizons a lot because I don't know a whole lot. Because I was in one fantasy league for 2 years before we got into the one at Bennick.
And then you played for 1 year.
And then I played for 1 year at Bennick, took a year off, and then I came back here. Yeah.
I like 10 teams is good. You know?
Okay.
Like that's a good amount.
That seems very manageable.
You could play in the Bennett League next year. That would.
Oh, that would
you
be
could totally
legit.
come back and play.
I got a
in the
vet
Bennett
rep.
League.
I can like.
Yeah.
I got a veteran card to Bennett. I can play right.
Yeah, you'd have to. We draft like at work.
Yeah, you still do the in person. Yeah.
So you'd have to.
I'll fucking
you'd have
come
to
in.
leave work early that.
Yeah,
day,
I own
but-
my own company. I can come in for that.
Yeah, you could be in the Bennett League. That's the
Totally.
other two leagues that I'm in are Ryan is the commissioner of those leagues too. Ryan is
Yeah,
the
Ryan's
commissioner
pretty-
of 3 of those leagues that
He's
I'm
on
in, and then the other one I'm the
I
commissioner
miss talking
of.
to Ryan. I'm not gonna lie.
Ryan's awesome.
Yeah.
I've become way closer friends with Ryan.
He is
since
super
over the
deep,
last,
dude. He's
like,
got a
year
lot
or
of
so.
like me and him got a real deep sci-fi connection and shit.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
Ryan's very
it's pretty
cool.
sweet. All right, so one last sports question, and then I'm out. I'm sorry. Like I said,
Oh,
we
I
set
got
the
a kid.
precedent at 4
I have a
hours.
kid at home. Yeah, the precedent's not 4 hours. I don't know why you're saying
Gardner Minshew,
that. What about him?
worth it or not? I picked him up last year too.
I've
I've had him on my bench.
don't
and he's
know.
thrown
I
like
think-
20 plus.
I think that he's fine.
Oh, he's fine.
I think that he's
Trade
fine.
material?
No, I don't know that anybody would trade for him.
Oof,
But
okay.
he's fine.
I'll keep him on my bench.
He's a
good
backup.
second
We're in a
guy.
14-team league, so there's 28 quarterbacks that are going to be taken up at some point. So I don't.
All right, bro. Spit me a line. We'll get out of here.
Yeah. I don't understand what's happening here.
I've
look,
gotten-
man. I understand that on the spectrum of I want to have sex with you to I want to kill you, hospitality and flirting are somewhere in that gray area, but you're gonna have to just figure it out.
I'll figure it out, bro. I'll figure it
Yeah.
out. That's how you work a line in, bro.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, sir. May I have another?